Right, come on, you four-eyed fat-faced fool. Tell us what's going to be in the new podcast from the two mics.
Well, plenty of buffoonery from you and lots of sense from me. What else? Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the two mics. We're here for 2 weeks holding the fort for Hawksby and Jacobs. It's been a momentous day for the families of the 96 victims of Hillsborough. A jury concluded yesterday that they were all unlawfully killed. We'll find out what happens next in the first hour of the show. We'll be trying to convince the Porkmeister as well why Game of Thrones is so popular, even though he says he can't understand it. We'll be debating what should happen to Dele Alli after Tottenham stuttered last night against West Brom. And we'll be looking ahead to Manchester City's massive Champions League semi-final tonight against Real Madrid. 08717 22 3344. Also coming up on the show, we've got the result of winners and losers, and it's Ask Porky, where everyone's favourite agony uncle solves your problems. Get your questions in now. He's here to help. You're listening to the two mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. Welcome to the show, and a very good afternoon to you, Mr. Mike Parry.
Yeah, welcome, Mike. It is an historic day, certainly for Liverpool Football Club and Liverpool fans.
Yeah. For all football fans, in a way.
For all football fans, I totally agree. For the football community, because justice has been done after 27 years. So I'm delighted that Tony Evans is coming to join us on the show.
He is.
A man who probably knows more about that situation than any other journalist that we've dealt with over those decades that it's been going on. So that's a bit later in the show. Just for the moment, it's always great to be here, of course. What are you whittering on about Ronaldo being on fire?
Well, I was just saying, it's interesting, is it not, how people have chosen a particular phrase when they talk about footballers being, on fire. If they say, Ronaldo's on fire tonight, and then some people have changed it to...
And who said Ronaldo's on fire? Why have you picked this up?
Well, I just picked it up from the Sports Report. You're not listening to Ben Fletcher's Sports Report.
Yes, but Ben's a top guy.
Ben is a top guy.
So
I'm
what are you
not
doing?
seeking to, in any way, say that Ben has done anything wrong.
Right.
But he carries a piece of audio in his bulletin.
Yes.
Where somebody says, if Ronaldo catches fire, then there's going to be a problem.
Ronaldo catches fire.
Well, I mean, if Ronaldo does catch fire,
call the fire brigade. Call the fire brigade.
There will be a massive problem. So it's just that sometimes language gets changed and turned and used.
Yes.
And I've also heard people say so and so is literally on fire. Well, actually, he's not literally on fire. He's playing very well.
Yeah, but this is, you're picking holes in people's linguistic usage.
Well, we are, after all, in the business of words.
Well, you pick holes in my linguistic usage all the time.
Well,
and that's because, you know why? Why? Because I've got the ability to express myself in a way that you can't.
Yeah, well, you use words that don't exist. And when you do use words that exist, you often mispronounce them.
No, I don't think that's true. I am able to use the English language as a splashboard for expansionary, descriptive tones.
There's nothing wrong with that, and I'm very much in awe of the way that you sometimes do that. However, because there are people who listen to you and expect you to be giving them the correct form of words, you shouldn't really mislead them by making stuff up.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what you're on about there. Now, you talked about the Game of Thrones. We're going to talk about that later in the show.
Yes, we are.
Just as a taster to that, I've seen 2 newspaper reviews this morning from 2 top TV reviewers.
Okay.
One who says it is utter rubbish and can't understand it. One in the Thunderer, which is the Times, which is the world's most respected newspaper, says it's brilliant. So,
well, is it a question of age? Because depending on how old each reviewer is, maybe the older one doesn't get it and the younger one does.
No, it's not a question of that. It's the interpretation, the perception of what you're seeing. Now, the point is, that was on television last night. What's on television tonight? What's on TalkSport tonight? What are we going to be captivated by?
Are you talking about the Manchester City game?
Yeah, and guess what?
What?
Guess what? I am happy to make my mark on, what's happening there.
You know that there's a lot of Spurs fans very unhappy with you.
Why?
Because you yesterday said there is absolutely no reason why Spurs will not win this game. That was last night against West Brom.
There is no reason why...
So the Porky jinx once more kicked in very, very much after the first few minutes.
If you'd have asked anybody in the world, there was absolutely no reason why Spurs should not have won that game last night.
Well, there wasn't.
But Jamie Carragher, interestingly...
They succumbed, as you would say, to the pressure, didn't they?
Jamie Carragher, a great friend of this station, a man who... has his doubts about Adrian Durham, of course, our old pal. But
he's great mates with Adrian Durham.
Well, yes, I'm not sure that's the right interpretation.
Yeah.
But, of course, who is regularly happy
he monitors the station a lot.
Happy to air his views here. He said it could be nerves. Now, he should know, because he's been in those pressure situations where, you're coming to the end of a long campaign and all that, and you've got 2 hurdles. It's a bit like riding the Grand National, really.
Yeah.
And the last 2 fences come up, and do you change the way you hold those reins on that horse as you're going over those last 2 fences? fences?
Probably.
Or do you sit there and let the horse take you?
Yeah.
Or do you actually decide, I can get something more out of it, the horse needs reassuring? That's the sort of philosophy you've got to have when you're that close to glory.
If it was an analogy of the Grand National, of course, I suppose you'd say that Leicester at this point, with 2 fences to go, was something like 8 lengths ahead.
There would be.
You know, if you took a point for a length, that sort of thing.
Yeah, they would be.
See, that's a much better analogy, actually, isn't it?
It is a good one. Yeah. And also, you would say the only thing that can stop them now would be a Devon lock.
Well, they only need to win one more... actually, they only need to get over one more fence, if you like.
Yes. Does that mean they've got a superior goal average? So if they beat Manchester United, then it's all over?
Yeah, I think if they win, if they get 3 points there, that's the end of it.
That's the end of it, yeah. That's,
so I understand. And what about Dele Alli? What do you make of all that? I enjoyed watching Jamie Carragher's analysis of that as well.
Yes. To be honest, I think there is far too much nitpicking in physical behaviour between footballers in professional football. I mean, what I thought was best about it was the lad that he purportedly punched in the stomach.
Claudio Jacob,
thank you very much indeed. Did you say the name first because you're trying to impress me the way you could pronounce it?
No, that's the way his name is pronounced.
You've already said that I can't pronounce words.
No, you can't normally.
Right, well, let me tell you this. Claudio Jacob. Right, okay. Yeah. I thought he was brilliant in the sense that at the end of the game, he didn't make a great fuss of it. He just.
And also, many players in his position would have fallen down.
I was about to say, if you let me finish, what's the point of asking me a question and trying to answer it yourself?
Well, because you take so long to answer them, and we've only got a limited amount of time.
We've got plenty of time. You make your own time, Mike. Make your own time.
Even though you now have a clock right in front of you, so you don't actually have to look at the clock, you still find it just as difficult to work out what time it is.
Now, at the time of the incident on the touchline there, right, yes, it was apparent to me...
What do you mean the incident on the touchline?
With old Dele Alli.
It was in the penalty area.
But then did you see the way they drifted out? And what I'm saying
they were coming out of the penalty area. It was nowhere near the touchline.
It was. They were drifting over to the far side of the field from where I was watching it.
Really?
Well, perhaps you were watching it on a different perspective.
Well, you were looking down some binoculars from the wrong direction.
No, I wasn't. No. Now, the point I'm making is this, that boy... Jacob,
yeah,
he could have gone to ground easily.
He could have. I said that already.
Who was the last guy who did that in the Premier League that we don't like? He grabbed his face and fell over and started rolling around.
We don't like. We saw the Real Madrid guy doing it, didn't we?
Saw the Real Madrid guy doing it. Anyway, the point of the story is too many footballers do that these days. Because the lad made nothing of it at the time, there wasn't...
Marcelo, I think it was, wasn't it, the Real Madrid guy?
Marcelo was the Real Madrid guy. There was not instant punishment.
No.
Because the lad came out after the game and said, I thought very stoically... Who?
Jacob.
Old Jacob said, it was nothing.
Yeah.
I think that
didn't look like much, to be honest.
Well, I think on that basis, if the FA now decide to retrospectively punish Dele Alli, which could mean he could miss, like, the last game of the season or something like that, or whatever... It would be ludicrous, because then the FA would be saying, although nobody's made a complaint about a physical infringement,
but they are
we have decided there are... No, but
they're duty-bound to look retrospectively at an incident, aren't they?
If the lad Jacob says it was nothing, it was powder puff, it was handbags at dawn, it didn't bother me, they've got no right whatsoever to impose any sort of disciplinary action on the player, the co-player who's involved in that particular incident.
Here's an interesting question for you.
Right.
Do you remember how Roy Hodgson intervened in the situation with Jamie Vardy and said that he didn't believe that he died?
Yes.
Which was not necessarily his way of interfering with an FA inquiry.
Well, I
wonder if he's going to come out and say... Dele Alli shouldn't be punished.
No,
Dele
exactly,
Alli, hasn't done anything wrong.
Well, it'd be the same thing.
I've looked at the video and I think he didn't do anything.
It would be the same thing, because my interpretation of that is that as the Football Association are Roy's employees, and as he is, Mr. Hodgson's employees, I should say, for a bit of respect here.
Well, the FA.
Yes. Yeah. And as he is designated as their most important employee...
See the time, by the way.
Hang on a sec. As their most important employee, then when he expresses the view that there was no infringement, he's hoping the FA will be listening to him and decide on no further action.
Yeah. Well,
didn't work.
That's what I'm wondering.
Didn't work.
Well, it sort of did. He only got one game.
Well, I don't think he should have even got one.
But, I mean, the big debate now, and we'll have this later, I'm sure, is that if Leicester were to win the league at the next game, which he's not playing in, would that be a bit unfair on him? But there we are. Life comes on to be a bit unfair, can't it?
I think you'll be hoping that they don't win it at Manchester United,
I would think he will be hoping that. Yeah, absolutely right. Here's Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham. We are the two Mikes. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Tony Evans, standard columnist, with his view of the Hillsborough verdict. That was the sound outside the hearing in Warrington this morning after it was declared by the inquest jury that 96 football fans who died at Hillsborough were unlawfully killed. The jurors ruled that the behaviour of the fans did not cause or contribute to the tragedy, which of course happened in that FA Cup semi-final, April the 15th, 1989. There are so many questions, so many investigations that are now being launched into what happens next. We're going to talk now to Tony Evans, who is, of course, a columnist with the London Evening Standard. He was there that day as a fan. Tony, very good morning to you.
Yeah,
afternoon, I should say. Well, quite a momentous occasion, a momentous day, and as much as I suppose a lot of people would want closure for the families, it's still going on, really, isn't it?
It's a step forward.
Yeah.
It's a significant step forward, and the most important one in 27 years. But it's a long way from being over. What happened that day is, people think about it as a football issue. It's not a football issue. It's a public safety issue. What happened was a catastrophic failure of the emergency services and the police that let people down. And then, instead of recognising that and saying, how can we fix it? What they did, they smeared the dead, they smeared those of us who were there, and there was a cover-up which went on. And it's not about football, it's not about Liverpool, it's not about tribalism. What it is it's about making sure that this never happens again to anyone else.
Tony, do you honestly believe there was a conspiracy amongst the establishment, amongst the authorities, amongst the public service people who were there for all these years, and that actually that conspiracy wasn't really unveiled until the outcome of the official inquiry 2 years ago?
Yeah, without a doubt, there are documents. There are documents about a particular meeting of South Yorkshire policemen where they discussed how they could deflect blame away from themselves to the fans. Yet, without a doubt, right from the beginning and right to the highest levels of government, people lied about what had happened that day, and they knew the truth. And I think this is it's even more important than anything else. It's the fact that the people that we should trust, we should be able to trust. We should be able to trust our government. We should be able to trust the policemen. They lied to us, and they lied about it to cover their own mistakes and to not take responsibility for what they did that led to the deaths of 96 people.
It's an extraordinary story, really, Tony, isn't it? And the families have been speaking, and some of them have been writing already. There's a piece online on The Guardian, which is fascinating, by one of the parents of one of the victims. 279 days, the longest jury hearing in British legal history. I mean, it might actually go down, this whole case, as one of the biggest kind of cases of corruption ever in the history of the United Kingdom, won't it?
Well, yeah, it's one of the most important, one of the biggest miscarriages of justice we've ever seen. It's so crucial. And the frustrating thing is that much of the information that came out with the Hillsborough Independent Panel a couple of years ago has been in the public domain since the early 90s. But they so effectively got the misinformation out and so early that people just treated you like a crank. Every time you said to them, this happens, and, it's a matter of public record, go and look it up. They'd sort of look at you as if you're some sort of bizarre conspiracy theorist. And can you imagine how frustrating that must have been for the families who knew largely what had happened to their loved ones, and yet were being dismissed as some sort of fantasists. That, what we've seen that they were right, and the truth eventually will come out. But it's been a long haul.
Tony, you've got to tell us, because you're one yourself, of the unyielding spirit of the Merseyside people to demand justice, to go 27 years or 25 years till the inquiry is published, now 27 years till the verdict of the jury, and the toll it might have taken over those years on so many of those families.
Oh, it's amazing. When you think about it, if it happened today, right, then this inquest would occur in 2043. It's unimaginable. It's mind-boggling. Yeah. What they've gone through, and you know what? It really is unimaginable what the family's done. But the fortitude, the spirit, and people say about whinging Scousers. Do you know what? There was no whinging in this, no self-pity. What it was, they'd been wronged, their loved ones had died, and they were fighting back.
Yeah. Just remind me, plug a moment of ignorance in my head. anybody received any rewards for leading these campaigns? I mean, have they been recognised by their country? Have they been given honours and this sort of thing? Because it's the sort of thing somebody should be rewarded for keeping it all going.
Yeah, a couple of them. Margaret Aspinall was given an OBE in the honours last year, so there's been a couple of them. But I mean, frankly, they deserve more credit. You know what they are, the heroes, because they've fought not just for them, but for everyone. As I say, this is a matter of public safety. You have to be able, when your loved one goes to a public event, to trust the police, to trust the emergency services, and you have to rely on them to make sure they've got a plan that if things do go wrong, they'll be able to save as many people as possible. And then afterwards, if it goes badly, not to throw the blame at the victims.
Was there ever a moment, Tony, when the movement itself, I'm talking about, Justice for the 96, felt they might have to give up because they've been banging their head against so many brick walls, knocking on so many doors that weren't opening?
There was never a moment when anyone thought they'd give up, but there were very, very, very dark moments. One in particular, for me personally, the worst time was after the 20th anniversary, when it just felt, there was nowhere to go, and you were just banging your head against the brick wall. And then Andy Burnham sort of brought in the Hillsborough Independent Panel and took off again. But yeah, over the years, in the 90s, after the 20th anniversary, there are many dark moments. But it's just a credit to the moral fibre and fortitude of the families that they never thought of giving in once.
The Crown Prosecution Service, Tony, says it will formally consider whether any criminal charges should be brought against any individual or corporate body. We're going to get some kind of statement from Theresa May, the Home Secretary, on Wednesday as to what the government's response is going to be. But I'm reading already that David Duckenfield, who was, of course, the match commander, is already kind of protected in a way because there was a stay of prosecution put in place in the year 2000 because he was told he wouldn't face jail after a previous private prosecution failed to reach a verdict. Do you anticipate? I mean, obviously there will be an investigation. There is an investigation. Do you seriously expect anyone to be charged?
Yeah, I do. I think they need to. I think, given the situation, after the Hillsborough Independent Panel was announced, David Cameron, where he said in the House of Parliament, the House of Commons, I think there needs to be a prosecution. Those who failed that day need to take responsibility for their actions. I don't think at this stage anyone foresees them going to jail, but they need to take responsibility, and they need to recognise what they did. So not only betrayed the trust of people on the day and led to them dying, but in the aftermath, they betrayed the trust of us all by lying about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating few weeks and a few months indeed. Tony Evans, thank you very much indeed. Tony Evans,
thanks, Tony.
Formerly with the Times, now an Evening Standard columnist, was there on that day at Hillsborough, a terrible day that many of us remember very, very well.
Yeah.
We've got lots more coming up on the show. We're going to have the result of winners and losers. Coming up next, though, we're going to talk about Game of Thrones. This is TalkSport. Everyone listening to that piece of music will recognise it, apart from you, Porky, obviously.
Yeah, well, I assume it's Game of Thrones. We're talking about Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
but, it's the same old mushy, melodramatic, there's a monster in the forest and all that kind of stuff.
Monster in the forest, is what you've got. Now, fortunately, we've got an expert here, Mr. Jamie East.
Hey, how you doing?
A very good afternoon to you, Jamie. Thank you. Hot from your show, finishing on Virgin Radio downstairs, because we're all very, very much a multimedia organisation.
One big happy family, aren't we?
One big happy family,
yes.
Well, you're closer to the canteen than we are, which is good
I
in
got
some
in
ways.
very early today, yeah.
Now, you do a show on Sky Atlantic following Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And last night was the sort of world simulcast, if you like,
That's right, yeah.
across the globe of this new series where the big question was whether Jon Snow was alive or dead. And, of course, for Porky, who does a TV review on our show called Porky Vision.
Indeed, yeah.
He sometimes actually does...
Award-winning.
Award-winning in his own mind. Sometimes he actually reviews shows like, Till Death Us Do Part and stuff that hasn't been on for years.
Yeah.
So he's not really up with the modern zeitgeist, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And for him, Jon Snow is a newsreader on Channel 4. So
Yes.
can you kind of walk him through the complications of the storyline and why he should watch it and why he should love it?
So, are you interested in history at all?
Yes, very interested in history.
History's all he's got. He's got no future.
It's all he's got.
Future.
Yeah.
So Game of Thrones is very loosely based on the War of the Roses. So it's predominantly a story, a tale of a number of families all fighting for power over the kingdom. Yeah. That is in his very broadest sense.
Sure.
It takes place in a kind of parallel medieval universe.
Yeah.
A place called Westeros.
He's already looking troubled.
So
well, I mean, parallel worlds to me are the worst possible conception.
But you live in a parallel world.
No, I don't live in a parallel world. No, I don't. I mean, you say that it's based on this great story of the War of the Roses, the Plantagenets and all that kind of stuff, yellow rose, red rose, but a bit like...
Yellow rose?
White rose, red rose.
Where were the yellow roses?
But that was Texas, so just shut up for a minute. Okay. But a bit like the old Mad Max films and all that, they combine what's happened in the past with what is going to happen in the future and try and bring it all together. And then, to twist it all into a complete load of mush and mess, they invent, like, mythical, horrible animals that come flying around, gobbling up people.
Are you referring to the White Walkers, Paul?
Well, I mean, for instance, somebody...
What did you see then? Which animal did you see?
Well, it's like a big bird that flies around breathing fire. It's like a flying dragon.
That's a dragon. Yeah.
I mean, do you know that they made? Do you know that they made a Robin Hood version of Game of Thrones where they've got monsters in that flying around Sherwood Forest?
Okay.
That's the bad influence.
Well, that wasn't the Mel Gibson one.
And by the way,
Mel Gibson's one didn't have any dragons in it.
No, that was Mad Max. That was different. Mad Max was...
there were no dragons in that either.
There were no dragons in that, but don't confuse me. Another reason why I don't like it is because the minute I saw Jon Snow and saw all the tweets...
Was he wearing red socks?
Well, funny you should say that. I honestly thought it was Jon Snow, the newsreader, and I thought, well, if he likes it...
You started writing an obit.
No, if he likes it, I don't like it, because I don't like Jon Snow, because Jon Snow doesn't like me, because we fell out in America on the campaign trail some years ago.
Snubbed him.
Snubbed me completely.
Because you were with the gutter press.
Told me I didn't have enough intelligence. Well, didn't tell me, but kind of insinuated I wasn't bright enough to have dinner with him.
I think we're actually getting into the crux of the problem here. This is just a long-held bitterness over a character's name, isn't it?
You've only been in the studio 5 minutes, Jamie, and you've completely got Porky in one. I mean, his whole life is based on bitterness about other people that have somehow
bitterness and regret.
Slighted him in the past.
So Game of Thrones, though, is fantastic. If you can get over or see through the fact that there are mythical creatures in it.
What's the plot? What is the eventual aim?
Well, he's told you the plot.
So what's the aim?
The aim is we're now. Last night was the premiere of the 6th series, and I think there's going to be 8 series. So by the time, I imagine that the final episode of the 8th series will be one of these families or one of these kind of the houses they're called will end up on the Iron Throne. That is the accumulation.
Who's on it at the moment?
The Lannisters are on it at the moment. Tom and Lannister.
Who are they?
Tom and Baratheon. They are. I guess they would be in real world. They'd probably be They're probably in Monaco. They're the equivalent of Prince Albert.
Okay. Says Caroline.
So they want democracy, do they?
No, they don't want democracy.
What makes you think Prince Albert wants democracy?
No,
What's that got to do with Prince Albert?
No, the two families fighting for the throne.
There is no democracy anywhere in Westeros.
Oh, it's all like...
It's all kind of...
Who can kill more of the others?
Correct.
I quite like that.
My arm is bigger than yours.
I think that's quite a good standard to measure life by.
How much of Game of Thrones have you actually seen?
Well, about 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Last night?
No, I didn't watch it last night. Oh, okay. No. The last one I tried to watch, it was about 5 or 6 or 7 minutes. There was a very beautiful-looking girl, in a sort of medieval-type robe, okay?
Did that robe fall off by any chance?
It didn't, actually. Well,
okay, that's a rarity.
I should have watched it for longer.
Well, should have done. And she looked like Queen Guinevere on the edge of a lake.
Queen who?
Guinevere.
No, you're talking about Daenerys Targaryen.
Who?
Daenerys Targaryen, Khaleesi, Mother of Dragons.
Is that right? Yeah, okay, probably.
Or the big flying bird. And then, it's a bit like one of those guys in Papua New Guinea when somebody comes up with a camera, a big flying bird.
And then
someone's stolen my soul.
And then a dragon flies in. But sorry, what you've just said to me is, so there is some nakedness, is there, in this?
There's nothing but. It's either violence or nakedness or dragons. That's the three kind of things.
Which is, you have to say why it's so very popular.
Yeah, and to use an expression which is familiar to this show, maybe not in this particular time slot, but another one, is the Rogerisation.
Physical activity, I think.
There is Rogerisation in every angle and every orifice. Yeah.
Oh, blimey.
It's pretty full-on Game of Thrones.
He likes it better now.
Well, no, I don't. No,
now he's interested.
I'm not sure we should be subjected to too much of that.
1/3 of your heart can handle it.
No, I regard that as a bit smutty, to be honest, if that's all it is, dressed up as a medieval war between two
so how many episodes are
families?
There? This is now the 8th series.
So we're in the 6th series now, so there have been... Up to this point, there have been 51 hours of it.
51 hours. So you'd have to lock yourself away for an entire weekend and just watch them non-stop. I think that's a great idea for you to do one weekend.
I think think you'd
Keep you
have
out of the pub.
I think you'd have to see it from the start. But anyway, just about the history of this, James,
Yeah.
I'm very interested. Do you know who came up with the concept, and how successful has it been for the people who make it and the channel that carries it?
Well, funny you should ask that. The author, these are all based on books called A Song of Ice and Fire by a guy called George R.R. Martin. And I don't know if you can get a picture of George R.R. Martin, but he looks remarkably similar to you.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, I'm supposed to look like a hobbit anyway.
Poor guy.
And that's Middle Earth, isn't it? That's parallel world.
Yeah, so but the interesting thing is he's still writing these books. Yeah. They're big, thick old books, and they take a long, long time to write. He was supposed to have delivered the new book before this series started.
Right.
He didn't deliver it in time, so the series has had to carry on regardless.
Well, who's written the scripts then?
So there are two guys called David Benioff and another fellow whose name's forgotten, who create the series for HBO. Oh. And so they've done it with his blessing and in collaboration with him, where he has given them slight end points of...
I've just been shown a picture of George R. Martin.
I'm
He does
bang
look
on,
remarkably like you.
It does.
We'll have to tweet that one out. He looks just like you. He could be your long-lost brother.
Hang on, that's a fat, ugly, four-eyed, bearded loser,
Exactly.
in my view. But he wrote
Bingo.
Game of Thrones.
That's hashtag awkward.
Thanks, mate. Yeah.
So he has given them the plot points, the major plot points. Said, here's where you need to get to by episode 10.
Right.
How they get there is up to them.
I suppose when you've written that many successful books and you're being paid ludicrous amounts of money, there's not much incentive for you to keep writing.
He has earned hundreds of millions of dollars.
No.
Okay, well, let me
It's all shot in Northern Ireland as well.
Let me just put this to you very quickly.
It's very good for the Northern Irish economy.
Christopher Stevens, the TV reviewer of the Daily Mail, which is the biggest selling tabloid paper in this country, he gives Game of Thrones one star out. Yeah, we're absolutely sure
No,
of quality scale. Quality scale.
Right.
And if you look at the 7 days as well, and he says maybe on holiday for a few months, but and he just says it's garbage. He gives it one out of 5. All the hype, however, makes Game of Thrones impossible to ignore.
Well, as anyone in their rightful mind in Britain knows, you always do the opposite of the Daily Mail.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the Times gave it 4 stars out of 5.
There you go.
Remarkably. Yeah.
So why have you quoted from the one guy who doesn't get it? Because you're the other guy in the whole country that doesn't get it.
Well, this guy, Christopher Stevens, does have a reputation, whether you like the title he works for or not. He's a hugely experienced man. He's seen every programme that's ever been made for about the last 25 years. Yeah. He says it's drivel, like I do.
That's fine, but numbers speak for themselves. It's the biggest television show in the world.
I accept that.
It's going to have to figure on Porky Vision. Jamie, you're back tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I presume, on Virgin?
Every day.
Every day. What, 7 days a week?
Oh, well, God, no. Let's not be ridiculous about this thing. Crikey, me.
Jamie East, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in.
My pleasure.
Delightful to see you.
Valar Morghulis.
Maybe we'll have to come and do your show sometime soon.
Please do.
Jamie East, Virgin Radio, our sister station, he'll be on tomorrow from 10 o'clock. Coming up, we're going to be talking about a whole lot of other stuff. And maybe we'll give you the result of winners and losers as well. Do you want to hear that? Hurry up.
There's a discussion to be had.
Thank you. This is TalkSport. TalkSport, we are the two mics. We've got Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on. And for anyone who hasn't heard our show overnight, Ask Porky is where people get their problems solved. You are here to help, aren't you, Mr. Parry?
I'm here to help,
He is everybody's favourite agony uncle. You can tweet your questions at the two mics. You can put them on Facebook if you wish. We've already got loads of them, but if you want a question answered or a dilemma sorted out, now is the day to do it.
But of
course,
a
couple of tweets to read out to you.
Okay, that's fine.
I've also tweeted out a picture of that guy who has written the Game of Thrones. He does bear a remarkable resemblance to you. He looks a slightly larger, slightly more manic version of you, but there's definitely a resemblance. Liam says this: a big flying mythical bird that breathes fire. That would be a dragon. Classic Porky description.
No, hang on, they're not all dragons. I've seen, I've seen them.
What other
shaped...
sort of mythical beasts
well,
have you seen flying, breathing fire?
They're shaped more like an albatross than a dragon, to be honest.
Well, yes, it's breathing fire though.
Well, I don't know about
and flying.
Now, listen.
How about this one?
Yeah,
on the subject of the Iron Throne, Bernard says, Porky thinks an Iron Throne is what he had in the backyard of his 2 Up, 2 Down in Chester.
Excuse me, I am not going to reduce myself down to talking about, the ablutionary habits of people, 50 years ago, whatever. When I was
and then
born.
Woodenhead says, successful and made lots of money. Isn't that therefore Porky's ideal show?
Well, listen.
Because, normally you say you admire success.
I do.
You like people who've got money.
I do. And
so why wouldn't you think the Game of Thrones is brilliant?
I spent hours reading the Rich List at the weekend from the Sunday Times because
you haven't stopped talking about that.
Fascinate me. These
well,
people
nobody else is as
money.
fascinated as you.
Well, I think people are. They just don't like to admit it. There's no shame in admiring wealth. It's people who don't admire wealth who stop the world going round.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
would you like to know what the result of winners and losers is or not?
I was about to say, although we have Ask Porky, in which I can help people with their problems, the one problem I can't seem seem to get over is your gerrymandering of the winners and losers vote.
Well, you say that, but I don't understand how you can accuse me of it this week, because we've done it during the day for the first time this year.
Yes.
Right, so what's the problem?
When we started yesterday, I was something like, and you told me the figures, 73 to 27% ahead.
Something like that. But but that was actually before we started.
You're now claiming you've managed to turn that round 100%.
Do you understand how voting works?
Of course I do.
Right, well, what happens is, normally, when you start, for example, if the first vote goes to you, right, what do you think the percentage result is?
What do you mean?
If the first vote that is cast goes to you, and I happen to check one vote has been cast,
yes.
What do you think the percentage is?
99% to me.
Why wouldn't it be 100?
Because it's 1-0. And there has to be a space for the nil.
No, there doesn't.
Yes, there does.
No.
Yes, there does.
If one person has voted for you, then it's 100% to you and 0 to me.
No, it's not. It's 99.
So what happened? The reason you were 73% and I was 27 was because before we actually had finished nominating our winners and losers, I'd put out the voting process, and people had voted before even hearing what was going on. And as you know, you have a few followers who vote for you no matter what you say. Anyway, I'm delighted to tell you that after 1,255 votes were cast, the end result is 53% to me, 47% to you. Yeah. So it's another victory. So that means I'm 1.5 to a half ahead of you.
Yes, well, that won't last long, don't worry.
Well, it's not a massive lead.
No, it's not a massive lead.
But we should tell everybody who's not familiar with the game that the previous 3 tournaments have been won by me. So if it was a game of tennis, you'd been 3 sets to love crashing out of the tournament.
Yeah, I am absolutely sure that I can get back on it, no problem at all.
Okay.
I really am.
All right, now I've got a couple of stories to mention to you.
Right.
Before we get bothered with Ask Porky, which is coming up in the next hour, of course.
Sure.
For example, did you see that story about the celebrity that dropped into a pub in Hertfordshire?
Amazing.
Tell me about it.
Matt Damon was there.
Matt Damon, yeah.
And the reason
when you say Matt Damon was there, he was the celebrity.
He was the celebrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you make it sound like he was there as well.
No, sorry, Matt Damon was a celebrity. I mean, Matt Damon was flying home somewhere with his private jet berthed at Luton Airport.
That's right.
And he went to a local boozer. By the way, did you, on that very one, talking about celebrities, you know the other guy who played Forrest Gump?
Yeah, well, Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Did you see his reaction last night to the Leicester situation?
Well, he claims to have put a bet on them, doesn't he?
But he used English words like, I put 100 quid on Leicester at 5,000 to 1. And
yeah, but do you not think
somebody should put £25 on it? I thought it was brilliant.
Did you not think that was a bit rehearsed?
No, I thought
You're so gullible, aren't you?
No, I thought he...
You don't think he talked to his PR about that?
I thought he'd Anglophiled himself so well. No, I think he did. I mean, I quite like Tom Hanks. I think he made some good films and all that. But I never saw that one that was mushy. Was that...
mushy?
Something about Seattle.
Sleepless in Seattle.
Yeah, was that Tom Hanks?
It was Tom Hanks.
That was Tom Hanks, there you go, see. So I didn't think much of that.
It wasn't particularly mushy.
Listen, I found out something which has enraged me.
Yeah, go on.
Do you... now, recently I went into...
We're not going to talk about Matt Damon's visit to the pub, then.
Well, yes, we should talk about it, but...
he downed 4 pints of Guinness over 3 hours.
I know, I thought it was brilliant.
Set off in his private jet from Luton, 10 miles away.
Yeah.
He visited a place called the Checkers Inn in Redbourne, Hertfordshire. You ever been there?
Not to my knowledge, but I've been to a lot of pubs in my life, and I might have done there.
He left a $100 tip.
For each member of the staff.
Not bad, is it?
Very
the sort
good
of thing
indeed.
you would do.
Yeah, it is the sort of thing I would do.
Because you like to ingratiate yourself with
when I came
staff,
out of the Epsom races one night and I had a particularly good day, I paid for dinner for everybody in the Indian restaurant I was in.
Did you?
Yes.
Was that the same Indian restaurant you were asked to leave shortly thereafter?
No, that was a different one.
Okay.
When
That was when you had a row with Charlie Sale.
I had a row with Charlie Sale and the special branch who were dining at a table with the diplomatic protection squad who were looking after Princess Anne or somebody who'd been there, threatened to have me arrested for loudness of the mouth.
Yes.
And of course, it wasn't my fault.
No, of course it wasn't.
It was that loudmouth Charlie Sale.
Right.
But I've forgiven him for it.
Have you ever run into anybody famous in a pub? Apart from you, of course.
Let me see.
Or Alan Brazil.
Well, I told you the story, didn't I? In New York once, a friend of mine there took me, female friend, took me down to this boozer down in the village. And she actually said...
It wasn't the Lion's Head, was it?
No, it wasn't Lion's Head, actually. It was somewhere a bit smarter than that.
Jessica Lange used to be the waitress there, you know.
Where, in the Lion's Head?
Yeah,
very good. A traditional English pub in the middle of... what's the name of the village?
Greenwich Village.
Greenwich Village.
Yeah.
So we went in. She said it was that stool. I said, what was that stool? She said, you can't believe it. She said, and she said, I was sitting here on that stool. That was one stool away, 2 stools away. I'm sorry. And I said, yeah. And what happened? She said for an hour this guy was slumped over his drink and he had a beanie hat on, which was folded over his eyes and all that. It was only when he got up to go I realised it was Al Pacino, who was probably, her hero of all times. And I think Godfather 2 had just been like the world's top film or something like that. You know what I mean?
That'll go.
So that thing can happen. But listen, I want to tell you about my outrage
I'm not
here.
sure there's time, is there?
Yeah, there is.
Hurry up.
Yeah. Now, you know that lady who allegedly tried to get the 33 million quid from the lost lottery ticket?
Oh, yes. And she's got a new car, hasn't she?
Well, this is what I'm saying. Do you know why she's got a new car?
Why?
Because she claims she's got an enlarged heart.
Right.
And for having an enlarged heart,
right,
she gets a disability allowance of 600 quid a month.
Well, you've got a reduced heart.
I've got an enlarged heart.
I thought you had a reduced heart.
No, it doesn't work as well because it's enlarged, because it means it doesn't beat as well.
Oh, I see.
Because it's flabbier. You see what I mean?
It's only a third of it that was working.
It is. Only a third of it works, but it's large.
Right.
But of the largeness, only one third of it
It's a large
works.
thing on you, really, isn't it?
No, what I'm saying is this. Why don't I get £600 a month to pay towards my car?
Well, you probably could if you asked for it.
Well, I've never asked for it because I don't want to appear to be...
But you wouldn't want to drive around the Vauxhall, though, would you? You'd have to have a Vauxhall.
Well, I could still contribute towards the old Merc. Yeah. Suzanne, who has an enlarged heart, right, it's not a pleasant condition, I agree, gets a £500 monthly disability living allowance plus £600 in other benefits. So that's nearly £1,000. That's £1,100 a month.
Well, what do you care?
Well, because I don't understand. There's favouritism here. And with that, she's managed to find herself a new Vauxhall Astra GTC limited edition sport coupe.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be seeing dead in one of those, would you?
Well, I wouldn't contribute my...
Even though it's a sort of car for a man of the people. I mean, you prefer something a little bit more expensive and top of the range, don't you?
Here, she gets free road tax.
You're just going to ignore that question.
Well, hang on. Free road tax, free servicing, free insurance for her and another named driver.
Yeah.
I mean, I deserve all of that. I've had a problem with my...
You wouldn't need to worry about another named driver because you haven't got anybody else that wants to drive your car.
Oh, that's very funny, isn't it? I mean, I just don't get it. Why? Why does the system in this country reward people who don't do things as well as I do? I just don't get it.
It's unfortunately, it's not all based on you. That's the way the thing, the cookie crumbles.
But I deserve recognition.
Yeah, of course you deserve recognition. Don't worry, you're getting plenty of recognition. You're on the radio.
Empathy and sympathy.
Now, coming up in the next hour, we're going to talk to Arsene Wenger's biographer, Mr. John Cross.
Excellent.
Which is going to be very exciting. He's going to tell us what he makes of the whole Dele Alli scenario. How about this from Andrew? Every week, hearing the results of winners and losers, Mike Parry turns into a game of moans. Very good.
Moans, I like that.
This is Talk Sport.
Yes.
Talk Sport, we are the two mics. Any idea what that piece of music is?
That was, no, let me think.
You might recognise it.
No.
No, not at all. Nothing coming to you?
Well,
you have a wild stab at it?
Well, I mean, it could be anything. Is it a theme tune to something?
Not particularly, no.
So what is it then?
It's an instrumental,
Instrumental?
Although you might say there were some words in it. Very popular man. He has written theme tune. He has written film scores.
John Williams.
No, it's Moby. Moby, as in Moby Dick, but it's not Moby Dick. It's just Moby.
Who's Moby?
You never heard of Moby?
No,
he's a genius.
Oh,
How can you not have heard of Moby?
What's he written then?
Well, he did the whole Bourne movie thing. We were talking about.
He did the Bourne theme music, did he?
Yeah,
but I tell you what. See, that's interesting because the one thing that the Bourne series hasn't got. Now, they were great films, and I thought, what's his name? It was really good. Matt Damon.
Yes.
In fact, I don't think he should ever have gone off and done that film about the piano player.
The piano player?
Yeah, what was his name?
I don't know.
With the candelabra on his piano.
Oh, Liberace.
I don't think he should have gone off and done that. Because
he wanted to do it.
Well, yes, I know he wanted to do it, and apparently he was very good at it and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, then some other guy played Bourne, didn't he?
Yes.
In the fourth film.
No, he didn't play Bourne. Did he not play somebody else in the fourth film?
Well, I don't think
he actually played Bourne.
Didn't he play Bourne?
No.
I'm sure he did, because
Bourne
didn't
was
they...
missing.
No, I thought that during the course of that film, they said Bourne is out there and he's got to come in or something.
Yeah, but he was never in that film. That was the whole point.
He's
coming back to do the next one.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's a bit like, old Sean Connery having gone off and done another film and missed a Bond film and then came back. Yeah. Which I think he did, actually.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did, actually. Yeah,
he went off and did some of those medieval type things.
Yeah, but I mean, the film that Sean Connery came back to was a James Bond film made by somebody else. It wasn't a Cubby Broccoli production, was it?
No,
it wasn't. No,
I'm not as much of a James Bond
anyway,
expert
this Moby guy, right?
Yeah.
So if he wrote the theme music for the Bourne films, all I can say is it's instantly forgettable.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No.
I can hum you the James Bond theme.
I don't want you to do any humming.
Dum 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 dum. Now, millions of people around the world will recognise that immediately from the first few hummers that's James Bond.
But that's not the theme song for every movie, because they have a different song for every movie.
It's the James Bond theme.
Well, it's the James Bond.
Written by John Williams, you see.
But you don't have to keep repeating that.
Well, you go on then. You hum me the Moby.
Well, there isn't. Well, no, there isn't. The point is, there isn't one. That's
what I'm saying.
You know, it's
I just told you that.
Extreme measures. Anyway, how about this from James? He says, if you only drank 4 pints of Guinness in 3 hours in my local, you would be asked to leave.
That's true, yeah.
And Larry says, tell Porky that DLA is means tested, only the poorest get it. That's with regards to that one with the car. He has far too many assets to qualify. The plank.
I'm not sure that's true.
Which is entirely true.
In my view, there should be no means testing for people suffering, horrendously serious heart problems like me.
Yeah, right.
The point that I'm stoic about it, the point that I go through life and grit my teeth and ignore it and don't whinge or moan to anybody or point out that, only 1/3 of my heart works, doesn't mean to say that I should be dispossessed of my legal rights in terms of how the country should contribute towards my well-being.
I don't think you should have any legal rights because you're too much of a moaner and a whinger. Now, coming up, we're going to be talking to John Cross, who, of course, was at the game at Tottenham last night. Tottenham have now stumbled, and it looks like Leicester only need to make one more win to actually win the league. So, presumably now, even if you said that you think they're going to win the league, you wouldn't jinx them.
Well, I don't think you can jinx them now, can you? I thought it was such an interesting game last night because, obviously, I thought old Harry was brilliant again.
Harry Kane.
Of course.
Yeah.
And he hit the post, didn't he? And then...
Well, they hit the woodwork a few times, didn't they?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if he directly hit the post more than once. He hit the far post on that occasion, and the scrambled goal went in. But I think when Jamie Carragher said afterwards he thought it was an issue of nerves, I got to believe a guy who's been there and think, was it? But I thought the look on Mr. Pochettino's face afterwards, terrific job that he's done this season, said it all. The dream had evaporated and gone. And do you know what the problem is?
The game was up.
Do you know what he was thinking? He wasn't thinking at that moment, it's gone for this season. He was thinking, maybe it's gone forever.
Why?
Well, because the so-called, big teams with the big money, and there are teams who've got more money than Spurs, don't know if they've got better players yet, but they might get them, they will redouble their efforts to try and re-establish themselves as the top team next season. Yeah. And maybe that...
But yesterday we were talking about how that's all been evened out, weren't we?
Well, a little bit it's been evened out, but not totally. I mean, the window of opportunity this season was there, and Leicester brilliantly took it. Everton should have taken it, in my view. Spurs did nearly take it. Arsenal should obviously have taken it, but they didn't. The only one who took it was Leicester. Yeah. And whether that'll ever be available to teams who, are not traditionally members of the Big Four again, you have to wonder.
You have to wonder. Now, The New Day is a paper that we talk about very often on the show overnight.
Shouldn't be sniggering.
We shouldn't be sniggering, but this is a paper that has changed quite a lot over the course of time since it was introduced to the world, about 8 weeks ago?
I was going to say, something 7 weeks ago or something.
They're not selling particularly well, but they have something on the back which is particularly irksome to you and I.
Yes.
And it is, of course, the personal listography. This is where they have 3 things that you can fill in if you wish. They've done previously things like what your favourite 3 drinks are, where your favourite 3 holidays were. Today, this is quite a good one for you.
Go on.
Can you list 3 ways that you could improve yourself? You should actually have asked Porky this. Can you list 3 ways you can improve yourself?
I mean, that's...
Sleep more?
No, that's a difficult challenge.
What, do you think there's no way to improve yourself?
Well, all my life I've worked to try and arrive at a peak of perfection. And although you can't get to perfection, I have to say...
You're still quite a long way from that, I would have thought.
I have to say I feel very comfortable inside my own skin.
Do you?
And if you feel comfortable inside your own skin,
why
then... Sorry?
There's quite a lot of it.
No.
Your skin.
Well, you've got more skin than me.
Well, I have. I'm bigger than you.
Your face is so fat and flabby that if I had
I thought you weren't going to insult
yours,
me in the show.
I wasn't going to insult you until you started insulting me.
You made a pledge that you weren't going to insult me on this show.
I think you're basically pug ugly, frankly, because you've got a voluminous, fat, double chin.
Really?
And I find it very...
How much do you weigh?
Sorry?
How much do you weigh?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer because I've just been to have my heart checked out and the scales...
Well, they must have given you an accurate reading then. Yeah. What was it?
Well, it's done in medical measures.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What, like amps or something?
No, in kilograms, actually.
Kilograms? Well, how many?
90.
90 kilograms?
Yes.
That's an advance on the last one. You said it was 80 the last time.
No, I didn't. I just said it was 80.
90
I think
kilograms.
it was 88,
Okay.
but I think it's 90 now.
Yeah.
But anyway, look...
I don't believe a word of it.
No, we don't need to be talking about that. Look, what I want to talk to you about is, have you...
You're not going to give me 3 ways you can improve yourself. I'll tell you what, I'll fill it in for you, shall I?
Well, no. Oh, well, listen, if there were, OK, I would try to heighten even further my compassion for my fellow man.
Right.
OK?
Right.
Secondly, I would want...
There's not enough room for that.
No. Secondly, I would...
It's kind of 2 words only, really.
All right.
Or 3 maximum.
Heighten compassion.
OK, heighten compassion,
Yeah.
good.
Secondly, improve awareness.
OK.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're part of some think tank.
No. And the third one would be to love others.
Love others?
Yes.
Well, you've done plenty of that in the past, haven't you?
Well, no, I mean...
Love others' wives, I think, is probably more likely to have been your motto.
No, I mean more in a sort of spiritual sense. I've got an appreciation for fellow man.
Would you like to hear my 3 for you? 3 ways that you can improve yourself.
Well, why?
1, talk less.
Talk less.
2, listen.
I can't do that because, that's part of my being, I'm
2,
afraid.
listen more.
I listen to a lot of things.
3, get more sleep.
Why do you think I need more sleep?
Well, because you always need more sleep.
No, I don't need more
enough.
sleep.
You don't sleep enough.
But people who sleep too much are missing what's going on in the world, and it's no wonder that they end up as dumbcoffs and are able to really communicate with
How much sleep did you get last
people.
night?
Last night, about 6 hours, I would say.
6 hours?
I would say
That's
so.
quite a lot for you.
I went to bed about 10:30. I got up about 4:30.
4:30?
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because I like getting up at 4:30.
What's going on at 4:30?
Well, the world's quiet and I can get on with things and do things without being pestered by people who don't matter, basically.
Yeah, OK.
You know what I mean?
Here's a couple of corrections for you. Mart says, tell Porky the last Bourne-Phil star Jeremy Jenner as another character in the series as part of a bigger picture. Sorry, he means Jeremy Renner. I think that's what you mean.
Well, I knew that.
And here's one from Chris in Essex. He says, the James Bond theme was composed by John Barry. Not John Williams.
Well, John Williams did write some music for James Bond films, without a shadow of a doubt.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
I think you may have got that a bit wrong.
No, he did. He wrote... You're
just going to dig yourself a bigger hole
who
now.
wrote Goldfinger?
Goldfinger?
Yeah.
I have no idea. It's probably John Barry.
Goldfinger.
It was probably John Barry.
I think that was John Williams.
Yeah, right.
I think John Barry wrote the theme. I wanted to talk to you about meditation.
We haven't got time.
But you've been whittling on about so much other...
Well, just hold that thought and go for a while. Because coming up next, we got Arsene Wenger's biographer, Mr. John Cross.
Excellent.
This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the 2 mics, and of course we've got lots coming up. Ask Porky coming up in the next hour, so if you've got any questions you need answering, any problems you need solving, any quandaries that you need sorted out, he's the man to do it. A couple of quandaries coming up for Spurs, I suppose, in the next few weeks.
Well,
because
indeed.
They stumbled last night and only ended up with a 1-1 draw against West Bromwich Albion. John Cross of the Mirror was there, and we have to introduce him not only as the Mirror's John Cross, also as the biographer of Arsene Wenger. John,
Indeed.
a very good morning to you.
Very good afternoon to you, boy.
Very good. I keep saying good morning to people. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry about that. Now, the funny thing I saw yesterday. Yeah, well, the funny thing I saw yesterday was your book is now out in Korean. I saw you posting a tweet of your book in Korean. Extraordinary.
Yeah, I've had some amazing interest in it actually, and yeah, it's gone to Korea, it's gone to Japan, it's gone to Poland, it's gone to Czech Republic. You name it, it's gone there.
How many languages was your book on Wayne Rooney published in?
Oh, worldwide. It was worldwide interest in it. What I was going to say was, John, are you going to be the next plane to Pyongyang and see the great leader who feeds his people on the bark of trees? So whilst they can't eat, except, dead rats and that kind of stuff, they do have enough money in their pocket to buy your book. Does that give you any sort of a social conscience?
Flying, right. Thanks very much indeed for that.
I think it's South Korea that they're selling the book in. I don't think it's North Korea.
Yeah, but you know what'll happen, John? They'll smuggle a few across the border, and then some poor guy from Pyongyang who's caught with a copy of your book spend the next 23 years in a labour camp digging salt out of the ground.
Thank you very much indeed. I have to say, some Arsenal fans have been likening Arsene Wenger to some sort of dictator. But no, very much South Korea rather than North Korea.
Yeah. Well, we may get back to Arsene Wenger in a moment. Meanwhile, all the focus is on Pochettino, really, isn't it? And Dele Alli and Tottenham really now pretty much up against the odds to get anywhere near Leicester.
Yeah, it is really. And listen, I've got to say, I was listening to a conversation earlier about kind of Dele Alli and what punishment he might face, and I do agree with that kind of sentiment. If Jakob, and I actually spoke to him, I was sort of kind of down in the mix zone where we speak to players after the game. There's no doubt about it. I mean, look, he's too worldly wise really to sort of kind of say it happened. He said, I've forgotten about it. What happens on the pitch stays on the pitch sort of attitude, and he was ready to let it pass. So I do think maybe they should take that into account. I think that Ali is excitable. I think he's got that kind of temperament and sort of exuberance of youth, isn't he? And I think that you kind of need to channel that. I think the problem that the FA and maybe Tottenham have got right now is that sort of Leicester are still smarting about the one extra game for Jamie Vardy. And so while that's in the circulation, it will be difficult for them not to act upon what they see, or otherwise if they think that Dele Alli has done something wrong. I didn't think it was the worst crime in the world, but then again, I didn't actually think that Vardy died, and I thought that yellow card was a joke as well.
Yeah, well, John, I think you're absolutely right to interpret football politics like that. You know, they've got to try and be even-handed, haven't they, between the only two clubs who can still win the Premier League. If Tottenham miss it now, John, and I think it's still an if, you know, stranger things have happened in football. If they do you think they've missed the one opportunity in a lifetime, maybe in a decade, in a generation, to have landed themselves a Premier League title?
Well, I think it's 55 years, isn't it, since they last won the title? And I do think it was, 62 that they last finished second, wasn't it? So,
yeah, that's right, when they won the Cup.
You know, and I frankly, I do think it's this golden opportunity. You could say that about various teams. Where I think Tottenham are a little bit different from the rest is that I think that you can make a very strong case for them progressing this season. And they have shown good progression under Pochettino. I think that's to be admired, where I think the others have faltered and they've been disappointing. Whereas I think, yes, you have to compare it and say, look, Leicester haven't spent as much money as Tottenham. They haven't got the same resources or history or backing, if you like, or even the same quality, arguably, in the squad. I think everyone's been embarrassed by Leicester. But I think the exception to the rule really is Tottenham, and I think they are making strides under Pochettino. And I do think that they are. Look, I think Leicester will go and win it now. What a result that was for Leicester last night.
Incredible.
Played absolutely astonishing. Even if they don't win at Old Trafford on Sunday, then they've just got another 2 games.
Exactly.
At home. Sorry,
and they just need one. They just need one win out of 3 games. Is that will put them in the box seats basically? Nobody can catch them.
Yes, 3 games left. 7 points clear. It's as simple as that.
So they could draw every game and still win then?
Yes, indeed.
That'd be another way to get 3 points. Porky's already looking confused. No, 3 points is 3 points.
No, it would. But John, what I was trying to work out in your head was, really, Arsenal should have won the Premier League this season, because if the so-called...
work out in his head.
Yeah, if the so-called Big Four, all fell by the wayside, Manchester City petered off, Chelsea had a disastrous season, Manchester United, are a bit of a busted flush at the moment. There was nobody there except Arsenal, really, from the old traditional Big Four, who should have stormed through and got it. Now, as they didn't, that vacuum was filled by Leicester and Spurs, but Leicester have overcome Spurs. I think the clubs who have missed out, the ones I've just named, will now try to reinforce themselves so well over the summer. Tottenham might find themselves maybe the 3rd best team in the country next year, not the 2nd.
What, you mean if somebody tries to take their players?
If somebody tries to reinforce their squads with players from around the world who turn out to be as good as anything Spurs have got. I
think next season you will see clubs spend an awful lot of money this summer.
Yeah.
And I think that anyone that doesn't gets caught behind in almost in the slipstream, really. The new TV money comes into play. I think that for a while now, I don't think we've had enough stellar, real world global superstars in the Premier League. I love the Premier League. I think it's great. I think it's the most entertaining, exciting league in the world. I don't think sometimes it's always the best quality, and I do think we need those kind of real grade A superstars back. And I do think that I think some of the bigger, more established names. I mean, look at Guardiola. Guardiola, I think, is going to come in at City and make the world of difference, and he's also going to be able to attract players. Are Man United going to make a change in their manager? Arguably they will if LVG doesn't finish top 4. And I do think that for many teams, this season was a glorious opportunity, none more so than Arsenal.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at it, there's no doubt about it, Arsenal fans have been a while since they've been this really unhappy and disappointed. And I do think that their anger really is born out of the fact that Leicester have embarrassed many teams. Yeah. And I think Arsenal fans think that it's a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely right. John, thanks very much indeed. John Cross there talking about the game last night. Tottenham tripping themselves up and, more or less now lost the will to get to take over Leicester, really. But, I mean, you say Man United are in the doldrums, or whatever phrase you use.
Yeah, well, they are.
I mean, they're only, 5 points away from getting back into the top four, aren't they?
Yeah, Mike, comparatively to what's expected at Manchester United season in, season out, they're in the terrible doldrums.
Well, but they're in the final of the FA Cup.
Hang on.
Right? They're a stone's throw from fourth place because they've got a game in hand as well.
That's all. That's mediocre stuff.
Well, you call that mediocre. Well, if you call that mediocre,
what
do you call Everton's season then?
I call Everton's season a bit of a disaster.
A bit of a disaster.
Yeah, and you know why that is, because we failed to get to the FA Cup final. We've had a dreadful league campaign and a horrendous home campaign.
No chance of getting into the top half of the table, never mind the top
four.
Well,
probably not. I've just told you it's been a disaster, right? And
don't get all annoyed about it.
I hope it's corrected next season. But you don't understand the Manchester United situation. Manchester United have to be first or second and champions of Europe or in the final or the semi-finals.
They haven't been any of that for a while, have they?
Well, that's what I'm saying. 3 years now, isn't it? And they've fallen behind. And the thing is, when a mighty club like Manchester United keeps falling behind, it takes longer to turn them round, like a tanker. Now, why Jose Mourinho is not the manager there is a mystery to somebody like me, who believes that life belongs...
Still be.
But should be conducted along common sense values, and the common sense value is to try and find the most successful club manager in the world who is still practising his craft, to put him in the hot seat at Manchester United, and they then hope that will restore their fortunes. Well, I don't understand why are they tiptoeing around this?
Well, because I don't think they know how the season's going to end, and as soon as the season ends, then they will know. But by which point it may be too late. I think they're dithering because they don't know what to do. Personally.
I totally agree.
But that's another story. We've got loads more coming up, including Ask Porky in the next hour. David Buick's going to be joining us as well. This is TalkSport. TalkSport, we are other two mics. Several tweets to read out to you. Gabrielle says, Goldfinger was written by John Barry, Leslie Brickus and Tony Newley. John Williams never wrote a Bond theme.
Oh, that's good to know.
And Alan says, I can find no record of any reference between John Williams and James Bond. And Rob says, John Williams never wrote a single note of James Bond music. Right. I think that's pretty much conclusive evidence that you're wrong.
That's fine, but he wrote a lot of stuff, John Williams.
That doesn't mean he wrote a lot of stuff. That doesn't mean he wrote anything
Well,
for
he missed
Bond.
out, didn't he?
Yeah. Anyway, and Andrew says that he doesn't mind me saying good morning to people all the time because he's listening in Florida where it's only 9:22 in the morning.
That's okay, and it certainly is. Listen,
in fact, now it's 9:34.
Do you hear that newsline? Austin Reed having a few
that'll
problems.
be a place I imagine you would go shopping.
Well, I've got a bone to pick with Austin Reed.
Why?
I used to use an Austin Reed shop down on the coast.
Herringbone?
No, not a herringbone. No, it's the sort of thing that your father might have worn when he was bombing Canada.
I used to have a
during the Second World
herringbone.
War.
I used to have a herringbone suit, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I bought it in not in Bergdorf Goodman's in New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a matter of very little interest to me.
Is it?
Now, Austin Reed, right, I have a bone to pick with them. I went into Austin Reed's shop down on the coast, and I can't remember where it was.
You can't remember where it was?
No, I'm not sure it was in Southampton or Portsmouth, but it was somewhere around there.
Well, the two places are quite different.
Well, they're quite close together as well.
Yeah.
And I go and I bought these...
By the way, I've got a book about Portsmouth to tell you about later.
Oh, that's very good, great. Thank you very much indeed. And I bought these 4 shirts, right?
4 shirts?
Yeah.
Are they all the same?
No,
Some people have asked why your shirts are all the same.
Because I like blue and white shirts.
You're not wearing
like
a blue and white shirt today.
No, this is a sort of charcoal. This is charcoal.
Yeah.
To go with my black leather jacket.
You look ridiculous in that black leather jacket, by the way.
What do you mean?
Do you know if you're over 40 and you wear a black leather jacket, you shouldn't?
Do you know how cold it was today?
Well,
do you know how cold it was this morning?
I know how cold it was.
So I didn't wear my personally cut blazer. I wore my leather jacket.
Personally cut by somebody who had to shorten the arms and make the pockets deep.
No. You wouldn't know about made-to-measure clothes. Now then, so...
Well, I don't need mine made-to-measure because I can buy stuff off the rack because it fits me.
So I go into Austin and I buy these 4 shirts. Now, I just looked at the sort of the collar size and all that kind of stuff, and I didn't bother.
What size were they?
X,
which
is my size,
right?
And I didn't bother trying them on because.
Why don't you ever want to tell anybody what size
No,
your shirts are?
it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Okay.
And I took them home, and guess what?
What?
When I tried
They
them
didn't
all
fit
on.
you?
They were all, and the sales guy, who was a particularly stupid young man, didn't tell me they were all slim fit shirts.
Ah, yes.
So they
an awful lot of shirts are these days.
So they had these two seams down the back, which had drawn them in.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. So the buttons were sort of bulging.
Well, I mean, I'll be perfectly frank. It wasn't for my sort of shape. It was for the shape of some sort of...
How would you describe your sort of shape?
Latino tango dancer, and there's not a great call for those down in Portsmouth,
La Vida Loca. Well, there probably is on the cruise ships.
Yeah, well, maybe. But anyway... And I never got around to taking them back because I was never sort of in that part of the world again, before it became too long. It was like 6 months later, and I thought, well, I can't really take them back now because...
Well, did you try all four of them on?
Yeah, I did.
And they were all slim fit.
Yeah, they're all slim fit.
Really?
Yeah. Honestly, I made a terrible mistake.
There is a lot of that. I mean, I once went when I was looking to buy a suit a few years ago, and I went in, I thought I'd pop it because I used to buy Hugo Boss suits all the time.
Hugo Boss, yeah.
But in those days, it was the thing was to have a double-breasted suit.
Yes,
and which was you could shall we say you could disguise a lot in a double-breasted suit.
I don't mind double-breasted suits.
No, but they don't really sell them anymore, right? Or at least you can't really Anyway, I went into this
I've got a
place.
new double-breasted suit, a black one. Yes, I have. Yeah.
Where'd you get that from?
That place in Fleet Street, which is right next to Alvino's.
Oh, I know.
You know, the tailors?
That funny little shop. I used to get shirts there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, anyway, so I went into this place and I picked a couple of suits off the rack and I went to go and try, and the guy was like, "You're going to try these?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I don't think that one's for you," pointing to this one particular suit. I said, "Yeah, but I really like the colour." He said, "No, I don't think you should bother with that one." And he kept saying one thing after another. And eventually I said, "Well, why can't I just try it on?"
Is it too cheap?
He said it's a slim fit.
Slim fit, yeah, well, you get that.
So I said, "Well, I don't care. I'm going to try it on anyway."
Yeah.
And it was too small.
Well, I'm not surprised. I saw a guy once very diplomatically in a shop I was in, but I was looking through the rack and this fat guy, I mean, really fat guy, came in. And he wanted to try...
fatter than you?
I'll ignore that. And this guy came in and he tried on this suit and it was ridiculous. He looked like that guy who was the chief comedian in that TV series about the holiday camp.
Chief comedian?
Yeah, what was it?
What, you mean Heidi High?
Heidi High, that's right. I don't
remember it now.
Remember he always wore this like check suit? I mean, that was it. This guy tried this on and he looked so ridiculous. I burst out laughing and then he tried to get sort of physically, aggressive with me and all that kind of stuff. But the shop lad calmed it all down by saying, "Look, sir, I think what the gentleman's saying is, checks can do it for a man of a certain bodily form.
In a good way?
Mate, you look incredibly fat and don't wear it.
Oh, I see.
Now, listen, I'll tell you what, sorry, because...
Well, just going back to Austin Reed, look at this, right? Here's an interesting line.
Yes.
Right? He used to have a concession on the Queen Elizabeth, the transatlantic liner.
Wow.
And he also supplied clothing for special agents and resistance fighters during World War II.
That's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah. Hey, do you know what I found out the other day, by the way?
No
and
idea.
I'll try and find the information on it. The bloke who invented...
Winston Churchill was a customer.
Was he a customer? The bloke who invented Ben Sherman shirts. We all had a Ben Sherman shirt, didn't we, when we were kids?
I used to have loads of them, yeah.
I had loads of them. I did. And I loved them. They were bold stripes.
With a hook at the back.
A hook at the back, button-down collars and all that.
And a button at the back of the collar as well.
I used to love...
They were kind of skinhead outfit as well.
Well, they became a bit of that, but they were still very trendy when I was a youth, and I was the apple of the eye of a lot of the ladies in Chester.
Are you sure?
Yeah, certain. And... I found out the other day that Ben Sherman's still alive.
What, the actual man whose name is Ben
He started in a
Sherman?
little shop above a laundry in somewhere like Brighton or Soho or something like that, stitching shirts
I always assumed
by
they
hand.
were American shirts.
No, he was an English guy.
Was he?
He was an English guy, and his name was Ben Sherman, and that's why he called his shirts Ben Sherman.
Well, that would make sense.
Yeah, it would make sense, and he's still around, amazingly, and I think the company then got taken over by somebody, so it's like a bigger organisation.
I think you can still buy Ben Sherman
Yeah, you
shirts.
can. This is the amazing thing. How many things that you bought when you were 15 or 16, in terms of fashion or something like that, can you still buy now? Can you buy a Vauxhall Viva?
You can still buy Levi's.
You can still buy Levi's, but they've been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
I'm talking about things like, a Teasmade. You can't buy one of those these
Goblin
days, can you?
Teasmade.
Goblin Teasmade,
Well,
yeah.
I used to see them in hotels a lot.
Yeah, I suppose you did. Actually, I'm not sure why any teenager would want to buy one of those.
Why would you
anyway,
want to buy Teasmade?
No, I'm not sure.
Some ridiculous idea.
No.
Anyway, listen, we've got lots to talk about coming up. We've got Ask Porky to do. We're going to talk about divorce. I know you've never been married because it's basically because you fear getting divorced and having all your money taken off you. We're going to talk to Vanessa Lloyd-Platt, who is a divorce lawyer. Who is not personally named as greedy, but Gary Lineker's come out and said that divorce lawyers are very greedy people. We'll find out what she makes of that coming up next on TalkSport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to be talking corporate hospitality with David Buick, something that both of us know a little bit about. And also, of course, it's Ask Porky. So if you've got a question you need answering, a problem you need solved, you can tweet it at the two mics, at Mike Parry 8, at IROMG. Or, of course, what you can do is you can text it to 81089. Now, a story in the papers this morning caught our eye, and it was Gary Lineker who basically said that divorce creates hate in couples. He says the system is designed to cost couples a fortune and leads to them hating each other. And he basically blames the legal system and divorce lawyers who get their hooks into people and basically make the couples who maybe started out quite sort of amicably settle, making a settlement, somehow, at daggers drawn.
Well, he says simply there should be a mathematical equation that goes straight to the courts and then they sort it out. We have heard of only recently of divorce battles which have run up millions of pounds worth of fees where couples have millions of pounds worth of assets.
Well, wasn't Liam Gallagher's scenario with his former wife told by... They were both told, I think, by a judge that they should go and sort themselves out and stop spending loads of money on legal fees.
I totally agree.
But let's talk to Vanessa Lloyd-Platt, who is, of course, a celebrity divorce lawyer. She'll probably want to defend her legal system in this whole scenario, but let's see what she says. Vanessa, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. I'm just sharpening up my claws.
Quite right. Too. Well, you can put them away for the moment because, you're not charging on the clock at the moment, are you? I hope you're not anyway. So I'm not sure we can afford your rates.
Probably not, but this comment is coming from somebody who's told us that the belief that crisps are high in fat is a myth and got a lot of criticism over that. Now, he obviously has a pathological hatred of divorce lawyers after going...
So there are a lot of people, Vanessa.
Yes, I think we're slightly less hated than estate agents, but not very far behind. But I understand people get very upset. But what I would say is it's also an excuse that's used by a lot of people when they have actually behaved quite badly. And they've, rather than own up to the fact they've been behaving quite badly, they say, well, my lawyer made me do it.
Yes. And well, you can hide behind a lawyer, can't you?
Yes, and it's a nice, neat way of people doing it. But actually, we come in for a lot of stick when, in fact, what our role is to find a solution in every case. And we do. But what Gary Lineker is saying is, look, you can go online and you can do the whole thing online. You don't even need to involve a lawyer. And I'd like to personally thank him because every time he comes out and says this, a lot of people go off and do it themselves and then end up in all sorts of difficulties because they either don't get an order at all, so they've agreed something, but until you get that stamp, the court stamp on it, it can be dealt with in another way.
So you're saying going to the website and paying £400 is not the way to go?
Well, it can be for some people if your assets are really simple, and it's not 400 anymore. The court fees to issue a petition itself are $550 alone, so I think these figures are a bit out. But having said all of that, for some people, it might be a great idea. I'm not ruling it out for everyone, but what I would say is a third of my work is spent putting right the mistakes that people have made by trying to go it alone.
Well, Vanessa, they shouldn't be allowed to do it then. We've got to change the legal system to make sure people can't go down the route where they make mistakes. You see, what interests me is that I don't understand why the fees to lawyers for acting for people who are getting divorced go up massively and are higher depending on the wealth of the people involved.
Hang on. We can't do that.
Well, hang on, Vanessa. Listen. Excuse me. Let me just finish, and then you can reply to me. Thank you. What I'm saying is, if you buy a £30 million house, the conveyancing cost to the lawyer is exactly the same as if you buy a £30,000 house or a £30 million house. No, I know we're not. We're talking about separating. We're talking about separating the assets between two people. Now that shouldn't go up massively just because. That, is it, though? No, hang on. Just because their assets are worth £20 million.
But it doesn't. Let me explain. It only goes up. An hourly rate is an hourly rate. And in this country, we can't do what they do in America. We can't have it based on we'll get a percentage of what your settlement is. We don't do that here for the simple reason the whole thing is structured to be fair. The reason it goes up is because if cases are very complex, you're going to, by definition, spend more time on them. So it's not a deliberate act. We don't just stand there weighing up the file and saying, oh, this looks a foot high, I know, let's double the fees and treble them. We can't do that. We have have an hourly rate and we have to justify the cost. Now,
But presumably, Vanessa, as well, I mean, if you were working for a big law firm and they saw that you had hooked in Paul McCartney or Heather Mills to a divorce case, they'd be pretty disappointed if you were billing them the same as you billed, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Bloggs from, Sutton High Street, wouldn't they?
Well, let me put it this way. If it was very, very simple and straightforward, they would be, because there would be more scrutiny if it was a public divorce like that. So we have to follow guidelines. And these days, if a lawyer is found to be winding up a client unreasonably and acting, if you like, on a frolic, so in other words, the client hasn't instructed them to do the things, they've gone on a frolic, the lawyer can end up being ordered to pay all of those fees. It's a very sobering thought, and somebody can ask for their fees to be assessed by the court. No lawyer is going to want to put themselves in that position. Now, it's all very well. People go, footballers earn a hell of a lot more than we do. Yeah. Sports people
but
earn
not for the rest of their lives,
more.
they don't, do they?
Sorry?
Not for the rest of their lives, they don't, which can sometimes be an
unless you're David Beckham.
And they earn a lot more than lawyers do. I am not suggesting that lawyers are poor, but what I'm saying is, if you go into a very nice restaurant, you expect to pay for it. Why is it when people come to lawyers, they think, oh, why should we have to pay? Our product is our advice. That's how we pay.
I don't think anyone's saying that. I think what Gary Lineker's saying is that lawyers can get greedy. I mean, I had a good friend who had to get divorced sort of later in life. His two kids were relatively grown up, but he left his wife for another woman. And he went to see the lawyer, and he said, well, so they gave me basically two scenarios. One, I give all my money to my ex-wife, or two, I give it all to the lawyer.
Well, if I might say, that is the daftest thing I've ever heard.
I agree with you, Vanessa.
If they were sensible, they might have thought about going to mediation, which would have cost them less.
Yeah, that doesn't work, though, when the ex-wife's getting a bit upset.
See, he's getting all upset now, Vanessa. He's been through a divorce, you see, and he's bitter.
Feel it. I can hear it.
He's twisted.
I'm not at all bitter. I got a great deal from a very, very good law firm because I happen to know somebody who worked there.
You're bitter and twisted.
Gave me a cut rate.
Vanessa, can I ask you this? Because you've just made the point, very rightly, that footballers are elite members of society. They earn vast sums of money. Yeah. There must be a department within the legal world that's focusing on those footballers because of the immense amount of money they got, and they hope to get their hands on it. And footballers are very susceptible to temptations which lead to marriage breakups.
No, what I would say to you is there's a lot of us that do act for footballers, and what we have to do is to explain it very carefully. But footballers have a lot of agents, they have publicity, people that deal with their publicity, they have a lot of people guiding them around them. They are more likely, perhaps, to cause them problems than the lawyer who has to get it right, because the lawyer will be sued if they get it wrong. So we have a vested interest in getting it right.
So you're denying, Vanessa, Gary Lineker's charge that if once lawyers get involved, it does tend to turn nasty.
No,
because
no,
I know that can happen.
I'm not denying it. There may be some lawyers that aren't like the rest of us and who might wind people up. But I have to say to you, many people don't need winding up when they come in. They are already wound up.
It's true, including this guy here. Including this man.
Not at all. Not at all.
Right, so I have to say there may be some that send very stupid letters. We've had ones that have come to us saying, please add a few more noughts to the offer, and my client might accept it.
Unbelievable.
Those kind of suggestions don't help it. The very personalised letters that you sometimes get from lawyers, they don't do anybody any good whatsoever. And these days, most of the letters don't even get seen by the judges because the judges don't want all of that. Yeah. Okay, they just want to find out what people got, what are their needs, what their expenses, and how old are the children, etc., and what's the lifestyle, what's the asset.
Quite right.
So none of it is relevant. But I'm not saying that every single lawyer is perfect. There are probably some of those out there that don't do the system any justice.
Well, don't worry, footballers aren't perfect, that's for sure.
Yeah. We're running into the second quarter of an hour, Vanessa. We can't afford you to stay on any longer, I'm afraid. We've only got enough money for 15 minutes of a consultation. So thank you very much indeed, Vanessa Lloyd-Platt there. Now, just to finish this...
bitterness.
I'm not bitter at all.
Bitterness was oozing out of every pore of your body there.
It's more projection from you.
You know, you treated your wife disgracefully. She took you to the cleaners, rightfully, yes.
She didn't take me to the cleaners
well, she should have done.
I was very fair to her.
Yeah, I'm glad she did.
Yeah, she's still in love with me, you know. This is Talk Sport. afternoon. We are the two mics in for Hawksby and Jacobs. Whenever I hear that music, I expect to see Tim Vickery walking in the room.
Well, that's right, yeah.
From Brazil. He might be in a bit later on this week, though.
That'd be nice to see him.
I believe he's visiting these parts. He won't be too happy about what happened to Tottenham last night, then.
No, that's absolutely right. You know, when you play that clip before Tim comes on, you play it because the last line is Rio, right? We're all going down to Rio, yeah?
Flying down to Rio.
But in fact, the punchline in it should be, what's your name, Virginia Plain? Because the record's called Virginia Plain, right?
Yeah, I suppose so.
So that completely throws me all the time.
He doesn't live in Virginia, though.
Sorry?
He doesn't live in Virginia.
No, I know he doesn't live in Virginia, but I mean, you know, that's why I think it's a misleading song.
That's why they don't put you in charge of putting in the music into the show.
No, they don't put me in charge of putting the music in the show, mate, because I've got real musical taste, you know.
Is that right?
Listen, I need to talk to you, pal, because this is important. You know, we talked earlier on with John Cross about selling his book in Pyongyang.
Yes, we did, yes.
Pyongyang, of course.
Even though it's really South Korea, that's probably where most of the sales will be.
It is, but as I said, they do smuggle these things across the border.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had to bring this up because it's such a terrible human story. Pyongyang, of course, is North Korea.
It is indeed.
And it is probably the most oppressive regime in the world. But do you know what was worse?
What?
Mao's China. I've got a book sent to me called The Cultural Revolution, A People's History.
Well, why does that surprise you?
Well, no, the thing is, what I'm saying is a lot of modern-day sort of, what can I say, intellectuals or whatever they call themselves, deep thinkers. You know,
don't
these
count
guys.
Yourself as one of those?
Sorry?
You don't count yourself as a philosopher? A
I'm
Renaissance man?
No, I'm a straight thinker. But these intellectuals, they sort of make all sorts of excuses for, you know, terrible regimes and all that kind of stuff. Now, do you know how bad it got in Mao's China?
Yeah, it got pretty bad.
I don't need to laugh at this, but
they executed quite a few people, didn't they?
Oh, they executed a lot of people. But they wanted to get rid of the middle classes.
Right.
So they decided the best way to do that was to humiliate university professors and teachers and all that. Do you know what they made them do?
You know what happened to me yesterday, by the way?
What?
I was in a local Sainsbury's.
Yeah, what's this got to do with Chairman Mao?
The guy asked me behind the till, he said, "Are you a professor?"
Are you a professor?
Yeah. And I went, "No, I'm not actually."
Professor?
And he went, "No, it's the hair." He said, "You've got hair like a professor."
What do you think you're a professor of?
I don't know.
Nonsense.
A mad professor, perhaps.
Anyway, listen, let me get to this, because this
sorry
is
to interrupt your stream of consciousness.
No, that's all right. So Mao issues...
You're probably the least intellectual person I know.
Who?
You.
I'm very intellectual.
No, you're not at all intellectual.
I have such a wide range of knowledge, it amazes people.
Well, by the way, Ben Sherman died in 1987.
Well, I know he did. I know the guy who...
You said he was still alive.
Yeah, but his name was Ben Sugarman, and he called himself Ben Sherman. I know he died.
Well, he died in 1987.
Yeah, but the name goes on forever, doesn't it? That's all I'm saying.
You said he was still alive. He lived in Brighton.
You know, old Joseph Levi died in 167 years ago. They still have genes in his name.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, what I'm telling you here is...
Yeah.
So Mao issued the instruction...
Why are you telling me about this, anyway?
Because I mentioned Pyongyang earlier, and I thought I should clarify...
Well, so it's near China.
Well, it's over that part of the globe, isn't it? So anyway, so what happens is Mao issues the order, carry the revolution through to the end. To rebel is justified. Now, this is the bit that caught everybody out.
Right.
When bad people get beaten by good people, the bad people deserve it. Now, the problem was...
it's a bit of a loaded statement.
It's a bit, yeah. He designated university professors as bad people. So guess what they used to do? These lecturers were beaten to the ground with nail-spike clubs and then made to crawl over broken glass.
Really?
And whilst they were doing that, they had boiling water poured over them. If they complained, they were beaten again with the clubs.
Why is this in any way funny to you?
It's not funny.
Well, why are you laughing then?
No, I'm saying is, the reason why I find this slightly amusing is that the intellectuals I'm talking about these days still call it the Cultural Revolution.
They do. But you're strangely obsessed by these sort of ancient practices, aren't you?
What's cultural about making a maths professor who knows quite a lot about, how to add up 2 and 2 makes 4, but not a lot about crawling across broken glass?
No.
Why do they pick on him, I wonder?
No.
It seems to me to be a little bit unfair.
Yeah, it is a little bit unfair. I mean, there have been many revolutions over time, and none of them, I think, were particularly pleasant. I don't think you can point to any one of them that was very good for anyone.
Yeah, if these guys refused to crawl over glass, they were taken outside and buried alive.
Right.
I mean, it's not very cultural stuff, is it?
It's not really, no.
Anyway.
Which then occasionally means that when somebody makes a reference to it as if it was a great thing, then you have to be very, very careful about it.
Class enemies had their tongues cut out if they didn't pledge their allegiance to Mao. So, I mean, he wasn't a particularly pleasant sort of individual, was he?
No, he wasn't.
Yeah.
Now, you know what we've been talking to in this hour? We're going to talk to David Buick because he's been saying, apparently, that corporate hospitality is going to soon become a thing of the past because people are so nervous about accepting any kind of gift.
Do you know what?
The business of taking people to very expensive sporting occasions
Do you know what?
is going to be disappearing. Now, I happen to know for a fact...
I saw that very report the other day, so I'm glad that we're getting to the bottom of it.
Well, he is, of course, our great business guru, Mr.
Exactly,
Buick,
yeah,
isn't he?
yeah,
But, I mean,
yeah.
I know for a fact there are certain media organisations who are very touchy about it, that they won't let their employees accept any kind of hospitality to go to any kind of event because they fear that it may somehow compromise their neutrality.
In reporting on something.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that is utterly ridiculous. If a holiday company says to you, oh, would you like to go for 10 days to... the Maldives or something like that.
Yeah.
The first time any, sort of half-baked reporter comes back and says the Maldives is rubbish and it's full of rich, fat people who lie around on beaches all day drinking free booze, first guy comes out, he will never go on one of those again. There's a lot of self-interest involved in these things.
Well, there is, but it's very unusual, is it not, on the old travelling scenario? If you go on one of these free travel trips, that most people write in great glowing terms, they don't really write about necessarily anything to do with the place they're going. They write about the company, they write about the hotel.
I write about how good the service was on the aeroplane. If
You've
it was
been on
sponsored
many of
by
these,
British Airways.
You've been on many of these.
I have been on a few of these.
Well, there was my favourite story about all of that was our man George Gordon in New York when he was the Daily Mail's correspondent many years ago.
Yes.
And he got a call one day from the PR at Cunard who said, the thing is, George, we've really enjoyed taking you and your colleagues out on... various sort of trips on the QE2 whenever it's been in New York.
What
they would do is they'd take it out of into international waters so they could gamble
and get bladderated.
So basically, there'd be a sort of 12-hour, drinking and gambling session for all the journos in New York. And the woman said the thing is that the only 3 stories that have appeared in the Daily Mail since we did that are one. That it's being refitted in Germany, and that's a terrible thing because it should be being refitted in England. 2,
that was a virus on board, which nearly killed everybody.
2, there was a virus on board, nearly killed everybody. And the third one was, I think, that the engines had cut out somewhere mid-Atlantic.
Exactly.
And, everyone was feeling terribly ill because it was swaying about. And he just was quick as a flash. He said, well, imagine what that would have been like if you hadn't given us the freebies.
Exactly.
And that was his answer.
Yeah. Well,
so they never called him again.
Yeah, it was very hard, really, to balance things up. When I went on if I went on something which I didn't quite like, then...
How many trips would you say you've been on?
What, on...
In the course of your illustrious career as the new Supremo at the Daily Express.
Do you mean fact-finding?
Fact-finding,
missions? Fact-finding missions?
Facility trips. You went to the Atacama Desert, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, in Chile.
Yeah,
you
went
to
great. Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires.
Was that the same trip?
No, that was a proper business trip. I flew into Buenos Aires on the first British Airways jumbo to fly in after the Falklands War when we resumed normal relations with them.
What, you waited till the war was over?
Well, of course I waited till the war was over. I wasn't going to get shot down, was I, by some mad guy with a missile or something?
Yeah, that he bought from France.
Yeah, probably, an exercise. Yeah, mind you, most of them
You
didn't
went to
explode,
Australia,
thank God.
didn't you, on a freebie?
The only time I went to Australia on a freebie, because I've been to Australia a few times, was when a company flew, and I can't understand why this isn't still done today. A company came to us and said they were going to fly the first ever plane between London and Australia non-stop to Perth, because obviously that's the nearest point in Australia from where we are.
And it didn't stop anywhere on the way?
Didn't stop anywhere on the way. And
imagine what state you must have been in by the time you got off the other end.
It was challenging. Did they
carry you off on a stretcher?
No, but it was a strange old thing because we worked it out. It was a group of us that the more we drunk on the plane on the way to Australia, the more we'd be helping the plane out because, of course, we'd be reducing the volume weight of the alcohol.
Yeah, right.
The only problem was that it turned from one form of fluid into another because, of course, you were...
I think that's too much information.
It is too much information, but it's that old expression about you only renting beer, you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff.
Indeed.
And there was no difference in the weight when it landed to when it took off for obvious reasons. It didn't.
Why would you even ask that question?
Well, we tried to use it as an excuse to help them deplete the the galley full of full of bottles.
Did you not also go on a Concorde as well?
Sorry?
Did you not fly on a Concorde?
Yeah,
somewhere?
I flew Concorde to...
was it Belize or somewhere?
British Honduras, I think.
Was it?
Yeah.
And then just went there and came back again?
No, what happened was it took off from Charles de Gaulle and it flew to Senegal in literally about 45 minutes. Senegal's on the north, south, east, west coast of France. And it refueled
West coast of France?
The west coast of Africa, so...
No, what are you shouldn't go to Biarritz?
Yeah, should have Biarritz, yeah. So it flies down to Senegal.
Yeah.
In Senegal, it refuels.
Yeah.
It then flies from Senegal.
You didn't need a refuel, presumably.
I didn't need refuel, no. It flew then from
time, by the way.
Yeah, hang on a second. This is important. Senegal to British Honduras, or something like that. It was British something, where they launched satellites. That's why I was going there. And that took about an hour and 20 minutes.
So by the time you got there, you had no idea where you were, basically.
Not really, no, not really. I knew it was somewhere like off South America.
Yeah.
And it was a small island with lots of palm trees. But I, to be honest, I was a bit confused as to where we were. Yeah. The amazing thing was the Concorde stayed on the runway for 3 days while we waited for this satellite to take off, but there was too much cloud cover, it never did. The rocket never took off.
Right.
So when we got back on the Concorde and came back, the rocket was still there.
Bit of a wasted trip.
It was a bit of a wasted trip.
Well, we'll find out from David Buick and many other reasons why, trying to get to the Six Nations or trying to get to the FA Cup final, corporate hospitality-wise, might be a bit more tricky now than it used to be. Bill says this: I've never taken psychedelic drugs, but a couple of hours listening to Mike Parry, and I feel it must have a similar effect,
That's a bit harsh. Man, yeah.
And Martin says this: just imagine this halfwit, I think he's referring to you, at Buck House. Cucumber sandwich, Mr. Parry, not for me, ma'am. Have you got any salmon paste?
Salmon paste, yeah.
Because you were describing caviar yesterday.
I quite like salmon paste.
I'm sure you do.
I do, yeah.
I'm sure
I
you
don't see anything wrong with it.
Now,
it's only snobs who say that.
Well, when they talk about the prawn sandwich brigade, right, they talk about corporate hospitality. They talk about the people in those boxes that you quite often attend, where they get a nice package of lunch and some champagne, whether it's at the Formula One, whether it's at the Open, whether it's at the cricket. David Buick, of course, is one of our great financial gurus here at TalkSport, and he's been talking about how the death of corporate entertaining at sporting events because of the new regulations that have come into the city is going to kill it all off. David, a very good afternoon to you.
Michaels, greetings to you both.
Thank you very much.
Very nice
indeed,
to hear
David.
your
to
voice
hear
after too long of an absence, I would say. Now,
I know, we used to enjoy those early morning little shindigs. They were great fun.
We did, but there we are. Now, tell us about these new regulations and what they're limiting the likes of, I suppose, what you would call the hoi polloi from getting to very nice events and not having to pay for it.
Well, basically, we're going back to the great crash of 2008/9, when it was basically financial Armageddon, with an awful lot of people losing their jobs, creating a huge amount of angst and disappointment and anger. A lot of people lost a lot of money. We've had obviously very bad criminal actions against people for rigging LIBOR, for rigging foreign exchange, for rigging the bond market. We've seen people failing to be brought to justice for bringing their banks down. And this has resulted in the regulator, which is now known as the FCA, having to stamp down on what they consider anything that could be remotely construed as bribery and corruption. So most of the financial institutions in London, if they are taken out by any broker or any client, whereby it feels that it would be a situation where they'd be enticed to do business, there has been now not only internal regulations where people have to put in every time they're taken out by somebody, but also a restriction to the amount of money. Now, this, gentlemen, doesn't necessarily apply to the great big wide world out there. So this is just the financial sector. And it basically means that anything really outside regular lunches or dinners at sensible prices without too much Chateau Petrus 2000 is the norm of the day. And if you get taken to the test match and it costs whatever, it's £100 for a seat and maybe a similar amount lunch or dinner, then that's acceptable. But it's got very tough now, and the regulatory authorities are very, very keen that this will be implemented.
Yeah.
Conversely, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, sorry, Dave, isn't the difficulty here, there's a very, very fine line between what is acceptable, what's unacceptable, but not every country takes these guidelines as seriously as we do, and we're therefore up against the old problem of different countries having different interpretations of what is a freebie, what is verging on corruption, and what is acceptable.
It's an absolutely classic observation of yours, and you're, of course, quite right. Most of continental
First time
Europe,
for everything, David.
It's a bit harsh.
There is no, as far as I'm aware, there is nothing on a pari passu basis anywhere else in Europe.
Yeah.
I think you'll find that the US authorities are pretty close to doing what we do in this country. What we're doing here with the regulator, I'm not saying it's bad. I just think it is getting on the too draconian, because it's like everything else, that if you have an aspiring relationship which will enhance the business of both parties, there can be absolutely nothing wrong with a game of golf or a lunch or dinner or some sensible level of entertainment, even if it's on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a danger of the authorities not recognising this. And I just hope that good sense prevails in the long term. But it's like all these things.
Well, it's also not, David, have a bit of a knock-on effect to some of the organisations that sell these packages as well. I mean, where you've got, people buying packages at the rugby, perhaps, but the golf. I mean, not so much football, because football's rolling in money anyway. But some of the other sports which are not necessarily rolling in it,
Don't forget, though, that the big areas, such as public relations, such as advertising, and all the other big companies and manufacturers and people, it doesn't affect them. And so you're talking about a very, how can I put it, influential community in terms of the number of people, but it doesn't mean that the world of entertainment is going to crack up and fall apart. It's just that we tend to, as being a crisis, to overcompensate. Yeah. And so I think the authorities are making a statement and making a point here, saying this we absolutely insist on, and we also insist on the compliance officer of all these financial institutions invoking their disciplines to make sure that they don't actually have to be held for, abuse of privilege.
Sure.
I think this is the problem.
Sure. How much do you think that your particular industry, David, I'm talking about, excessive reports of lap dancing clubs till 4 a.m. and gallons of champagne.
Why do you have to bring lap dancing into it? We're talking about sporting hospitality.
Yeah, but I've seen it reported. Has that had an effect on this new view?
It's pretty rare if you find that sort of thing. You can never say never. But the people now are very concerned about their jobs. As you've probably seen, we've seen another cull in the City of London during the course of the last 3 months. Yes. I mean, well-known Japanese banks, you probably know Nomura, lost 600 people in the course of the last month. Sure. And a number of the big investment banks have also been culling because, as you've seen, the profits have dropped dramatically and the level of corporate finance activity is not what it was a couple of years ago. And so people will be extremely concerned about long-term employment. So we are seeing people nervously looking over their shoulders to make sure that there is no breach of what is considered a requisite amount of entertainment. I just hope that good sense prevails in the long term.
Indeed.
I understand what the authorities are doing, but I think there's a danger of the thing getting completely out of hand.
No, I think, David, you're absolutely right. As ever, David, thank you very much indeed for joining us. David Buick there, giving us the view from the city on what is going on in corporate hospitality land. And I'm sure we'll talk about this again because it's a big thing. Because a lot of money will not be being made now by some of these companies that do it. Yeah. But we've got Ask Porky coming up next, so we're going to save some more time. And then we're going to talk to Don McGuinness, our man in Manchester, ahead of the Champions League. Somebody calling himself TMF on Twitter. Okay. Have you ever used "Do you know who I am" when out at any gathering or establishment?
No, never. And I despise people who do. If I think that I want somebody to realise the significance of me being there, I always open up by saying, "Hi, I'm Mike Parry," and if it's relevant for me to say I'm from TalkSport, relevant to me to say, where I'm from or whatever, if I'm representing, somebody else in some other form, I just say that. And then you either see a look of recognition in the face or you don't.
Or a look of horror.
Maybe a look of horror. But I've never, ever used that. In fact, I was very distressed that Sir Nicholas Lloyd, an old ex-editor of ours, once used that at some function we went to. We were having trouble getting past the red line. And he actually said, "Do you know who I am?" And the guy said, "No, he didn't."
Yes. And that's always the thing you fear, isn't it?
It's shocking.
OK, here's one from Kev on Twitter. "My friend always cheats at games we play. How do I convince him to play fair and realise that it's not all that important?" What
sort of games are we talking about here? Do we know? Does he specify? I mean, if you're talking about playing chess, then I would say that, you just got to be a bit more wise and alert and on the ball. But other sort of games, if you're talking about football and he's sticking the boot in on you, there's only one way to face up to that. You stick a bigger boot back, OK? I am a firm believer in eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and the only language some people understand is knuckle buttiness.
Even though two wrongs don't make a right, obviously. Here's one from Andrew. He says, "I'm growing a beard for charity, but the disastrous combo of brown, grey, ginger and white makes me look worryingly like you. Yeah. Should I shave it off early?
Definitely not. That is the best beard to have, believe me. You want a boring, brown beard, white beard, dark beard. If you've got what I call a salt and pepper beard, it makes you look like you've got a very, very interesting face. Chris Christopherson is just the subject of a new book I've been sent, and I saw the picture on the front of the book, and he had exactly that. A swarthy sort of salt and pepper beard. My recommendation is keep going.
Oh, OK. Here's one from Glenn. Dear Porky, I've been suffering from a nasty pain in my big toe. The missus reckons it's gout from too much drinking. I'm not having that. Please advise me, Porky.
It would depend how old you are, but I'd be very surprised if it was gout from drinking. Gout is an extremely painful condition. A friend of ours Mike and I's in America had it. He was a photographer. It ended his career, basically. He couldn't creep around. But you can get...
He couldn't creep around?
He couldn't creep around, because that's what photographers have to do. You can get a drug called allopurinol, which I think if you take that dilutes the crystallisation of the gap between your toes and your blood and your bones and all that kind of stuff, and helps you out.
You should say medical advice is not part of the remit.
I was just about to say, I take so many tablets, and I might be giving you the wrong...
I'd say consult a doctor.
I might be giving you the wrong name of the wrong tablet, and you might take it, and all of a sudden your ears will fall off or something. Yeah. But I would, consult a doctor. But it's a condition that's treatable.
Andrew on the Two Mites Facebook page says, a man of wealth, does Porky own any other clothes, or has he got a bulk load of the same items?
Well, funny enough, I have got the same clothes in duplicate in two of my homes, because I think it's a good idea to be able to do that. So, for instance, if I buy a new shirt, I do sometimes buy two, if I like it particularly.
Or four.
You
bought those 4 shirts at Austin Reed.
I did, actually.
What did you?
Because I don't want to have to be carting them around all over the place. But that's just a lifestyle choice thing. The answer to your question is I've got a very wide range of clothes, but I basically like clothes in blue or black, and I like blue and white striped shirts, and I've got about 20 of them.
Duckford says this, are you in favour of energy efficiency or renewable sources of energy?
Well, I think the renewable energy industry is a bit of a con trick. I think we've all been taken in by it. People have made millions and millions, maybe billions of pounds building wind farms and all that kind of stuff, which I do not think are absolutely effective or value for money to the British taxpayer. I'd like to go back to the old traditional methods of heating our homes and providing our electricity.
What, coal?
Coal and electricity and coal-fired power stations.
All right. Ian says, my friend Jacob is debating on whether to create a fully-fledged seven-a-side league in his back garden in France for the Euros. What kind of net do you think is appropriate, tightly strung or loose?
That's a very weird question, that, because if you're playing seven-a-side in your back garden and you're lucky enough to have a garden big enough to play seven-a-side, 'cause it's got to be the size of a proper football field, I would say your last concern would be the nets. So don't send me such dumb questions in future, please.
Andrew says this, Porky, now that Leicester have virtually won the league, please could you do a Claudio Ranieri impression to celebrate? Well, you haven't really done him before.
Well, I haven't really done him before, but
that's Sven, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Sven. Yeah, it's I tell you, he's good. He's very good. We not win league yet. Not win league yet.
There's nothing like him.
Not win league yet.
That is nothing like him.
Win league, perhaps next week. But no, not win league yet.
Sean says this, if you witness somebody shoplifting, would you grass them up?
Definitely, and I have done on occasion and put myself at risk, because the guy who was shoplifter was a drug addict. He was a filthy, disgusting-looking human being, so I realised he probably was a drug addict. Doesn't matter. I put my fear to one side. He was stuffing frozen steaks down the front of his...
Well, he must have been desperate.
But I'm desperate not to be ripped off by shoplifters who put up the price of the food in the rest of the shop. And he was stuffing frozen steaks down the front of his tatty old coat. So I grassed him up to the head guy, the manager, who immediately had the door closed and sealed. You know, it's one of those automatic doors,
right.
And apprehended the miscreant and called the cops. And I was delighted.
You're lucky you didn't have to hang around and give a statement. Here's one from Shuggy in Edinburgh. Ray, your upcoming show at the Edinburgh Fringe. I will buy you both a strong drink, except Mr. Parry, because I fear it will do nothing but compound the drivel he spouts, possibly upsetting the many tourists who may never return to Edinburgh, resulting in near destruction of Edinburgh's tourist industry.
Sorry, how long is this question?
This is my dilemma. Is Mike Parry safe around alcohol?
I'm very safe around alcohol. I believe in the mantra of my life, which is Bladderation in moderation.
Quite right. Do you think Alisher Usmanov classes his £140 million flat as a penthouse apartment?
Well, probably. I should think it's on the top of the building, because if it's not, then somebody above him's got a £160 million flat, which seems to me to be virtually impossible.
Here's one from Peran. I heard there could be a vanilla shortage. Is Porky concerned there might be an ice cream shortage as a result? Actually, it's from Sean, sorry.
Yeah, well, not really, Sean, because there's lots of different flavours of ice cream. My favourite ice cream is butterscotch. You can't get it anywhere these days.
Of course you can.
Is a shame. Can you?
Well, where do you look for it?
Well, I look for it in, the cold store, really, where all the rest of the ice cream is. But I never seem to find it.
The cold store?
Yeah, well, they've sliding things that you put ice creams in. No, I wouldn't worry about the vanilla too much. There is a vanilla shortage, by the way, and that does affect a lot of things. But at the moment, my favourite sort of, dessert with food is a banana cut up into little pieces and then covered in a vanilla rice yoghurt. So what's your problem?
Why do you eat like a 10-year-old?
No. What's wrong with that? I like vanilla ice
yoghurt. You put
yoghurt.
a balloon outside your house as well, and having people round.
No, you idiot.
How about this one from Ross?
Half-baked.
What's the latest update on Ponzo the Chimp?
Ponzo the Chimp?
Somebody that you spoke about in the past.
Funny enough, I had an intelligence report on Ponzo the Chimp just about 10 days ago. Ponzo doing well.
Yeah, this is the one that's off the coast of Africa.
He's off the coast of Africa on his own island. He's lonely. Creatures don't like to be lonely. Remember, if you've got a dog, don't leave your dog alone. Don't let it be lonely. And if you've got a chimp, then you've got to find a companion for it.
And this isn't so much a question as a statement from Keith, just to finish up with. He says he's very pleased to find that Mr. Parry is now on days. My son has been listening to night shows, and thanks to Porky, his grades had dropped in history, geography and English. He says, thank you, TalkSport.
OK, well, you've got to be what you are in life. We're not all academic.
It's not a question.
I'm lucky. I was both an academic and a practical person who could use his mind to both read and study journals and books, but also to go out in the world and make my way.
Really?
So I wouldn't worry about not being an academic and having his grades down. I think there should be more plumbers.
Trent Polytechnic, didn't you?
Should be more plumbers, bricklayers and carpenters in this country, and far less people coming out of universities at the age of 21 with a meaningless degree in something that will end up providing them only with a job serving tables in a fast food restaurant.
What was the degree you were studying?
Urban estate management.
This is TalkSport. Major Darren Goff coming up very shortly with the Drive Time show. They'll be looking ahead to the Champions League tonight, as well as talking about Spurs from last night, of course. Tonight, Manchester City take on Real Madrid in the first leg of their semi-final. It's going to be a fantastic game, fantastic opportunity for City. Let's go now to our man in Manchester, Mr. Dom McGuinness, to find out what the lie of the land is. Dom, a very good afternoon to you.
And to you, fellas. You all doing well?
Yeah, very well indeed. Very
thank
well
you.
Indeed. Now, lots of people have said that this is the best draw that Manchester City could have got. Is that what they think, or is that just kind of wishful hopefulness?
Well, no, I think it's about right. I think that Real Madrid is the best draw for Manchester City. Yeah, they have some of the Galacticos. Obviously, they have the likes of Gareth Bale and Ronaldo, whose form in the Champions League is just incredible. 16 goals this season, 4 assists, and a guy that obviously is going to be the pantomime villain. He should be fine after that thigh injury that, ruled him out the last game. But, I think, yes, they have incredible players, but I do think that there's a very strong argument that they are the weaker of the sides as teams, if you like. I mean, as a team ethic, if you like, I think Atletico will be a horrible team for City to play against. I think, obviously, we know about Bayern and the story that awaits should they get by and should they get through. So I think it is a good draw, and I think, obviously, it's unknown ground for Manchester City. It's the first time they've ever got this far in European elite competition, whereas Real, 27 times they've been in the semi-final of whatever guise you call this competition, and so they know it all so well. But I think that Manchester City have just got to believe that they absolutely belong at this stage, as they should, because they've got this far, and look at the players they have. Regardless of the fact that City haven't got this far before, there's plenty of players in that squad. You've got World Cup winners in there, the likes of David Silva, so there's no reason why they should have anything to fear.
No, I totally agree with you, Dom, and I hope they do very well, like English teams conquering Europe. We all assume, Dom, and it's written without any quotes at all, that it means so much to Mr. Pellegrini to leave on a high, to leave with the Champions League trophy in his back pocket. Has he actually said anything like that? Has he made it clear that, OK, there is a little bit of bitterness that I'm being pushed out, but if I can be pushed out with the top trophy in the world, in the cabinet as well, it'll be brilliant?
he certainly isn't giving any bitterness away. And let's face it, he's in charge of a Manchester City side tonight against the side, Real Madrid, that sacked him in 2010 when they got a record haul of points, but were pipped by Barcelona. So, maybe there's some little bitterness still there from his treatment by Real Madrid. So, regardless of what he thinks about Manchester City and going forward, this is a fella that won't give anything away in press conferences. He's not going to be drawn on the Pep Guardiola situation and his own future. Every single time that you ask him anything about anything like that, he'll only talk about the next game. He'll only talk about what matters is that next game, and his own future isn't important. It's just about the club and doing this, that and the other. And obviously he wants to end on a high. There's no doubt about that. It would give him immense satisfaction to leave Manchester City in the summer and leave Pep Guardiola with a Champions League winning side. I mean, he had that situation at Bayern Munich, and then again, it would be an incredible way for him to sign off. And I think he leaves with his head held high, whatever happens. He's won a trophy this season. If they can obviously confirm a top 4 place, which looks pretty good, and then again a Champions League, it would be a phenomenal achievement for him.
It really would. And as you said, that this is probably the best match-up they could have got in the semi-finals. They probably would have preferred the first leg to be at the Bernabeu, wouldn't they?
Definitely.
And as a result of that not being the case, what's the plan going to be tonight, do you think?
Well, I think Pellegrini will say that City should always play with an attacking verve. I mean, that's what he always says. He always tries to send his side out that way, and that's the way that they will try and do it, I think. I mean, obviously they're not going to be gung-ho, but I think they will try and establish a significant lead. Of course, that makes sense. That's what they're going to try and do. But again, it all comes down to the fact that will the players, believe they should be in this position, in this stage of the Champions League? Should they believe that they can compete with this side that has some of these superstars in there? And there is just absolutely no reason why not. I think it is, as you say, a trickier thing when you've got the home tie first, no doubt about that. But as long as they can keep it tight, and even if Real get a goal, I think Manchester City can get a goal over there in the Bernabeu. So again, as long as they don't get battered, then the return leg should still be very live, and obviously City can make a statement. They can attack Real with verve. Look, they've got players like Sergio Aguero, David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne. What have they got to fear?
Indeed. I think there'll be extra pressure on Manchester City as a club to try and do ever so well in the Champions League, Dom, because this season a vacuum opened up where any one of 3 or 4 clubs of the size of Manchester City could have moved in and taken that Premier League title, and they all failed. And Leicester now look as though they're going to take it, and that will, that will be quite an issue. I think why one of the the big club top 4 didn't take advantage of the others falling by the wayside.
Well, definitely, and I think it was an awful February, and there you are. The chance pretty much gone. I think Leicester turned up at the Etihad and blew Man City away, and Spurs did as well. And an awful month just pretty much hampered the chances. And I think that will be a great disappointment, no doubt about it, because if Leicester City, as they look like they're going to go on and do it, then fair play. But a side and a squad, for all the reasons I've just mentioned in terms of why they shouldn't fear Real Madrid, well, they certainly shouldn't be fearing a Leicester City either. They should be establishing themselves as favourites pretty much year on year out, and it hasn't gone that way. But again, I think should they win, should Pellegrini manage to get through to a final, and everyone gets the kind of storyline that would make it remarkable, depending on how the other game goes. And as I say, I think he's got a great opportunity to do something that's never been done before. Of course,
right. And no Yaya Toure tonight, we believe, but possibly Company.
Yeah, Company starts. Yaya Toure, I don't believe, would have started anyway. I think it would have been a similar situation to the return leg against PSG. I think Fernando and Fernandinho will start tonight, and that would have been his preferred starting two in the central midfield anyway. I think Yaya would have been on the bench, and obviously you can get Yaya Toure on the pitch for 30 minutes should you need him. I think he's much more of a force going forward, but he's not the dynamic box-to-box as he was. Whereas I think the two Fernando-Fernandinho combination, I think they keep it tighter for the back 4, which has been an issue, of course, all season with or without Vincent Kompany, particularly without him. Vincent Kompany being back tonight, again, presuming that he is not feeling any effects from that 14th calf injury that he's had over the last few years, and he has played 90 minutes. He came through that okay. He says he feels absolutely fine, and he's been talking a great game as well, talking about why would you fear a game like this, and if you've got any kind of negative thoughts going into a semi-final, you don't deserve to be there. So having their captain and leader back should be a huge boost.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne podcast from the Two Mics. It's like a big bird that flies around breathing fire. It's
That's
like
a dragon.
flying dragon.
That's
a flying
dragon. Yeah.
it took off from Charles de Gaulle and it flew to Senegal in literally about 45 minutes. Senegal's on the north, south, east, west coast of France. Yeah, what's this got to do with Chairman Mao?